Broadcasting live on the Fanatic app and YouTube channel. Here are your hosts, John Kincade and Andrew Salciunas. 97.5 The Fanatic, Philadelphia.
Oh, my goodness, Philadelphia. What in the world did we do to the sports gods to deserve? Or maybe more importantly, what did Joel Embiid do to the sports gods to deserve what we have gotten? I'm Connor Thomas in for Andrew Salciunas. Amy Fadul to my left in for John Kincade. Sean Rodman on the board, and Joel Embiid in the hospital with appendicitis, the emergency appendectomy that he had to undergo, surgery, and now it's just, what do you even say about what we've gone through?
There's nothing you can say.
We've got 4 hours to fill, so we will have to say something. But everyone's reaction yesterday, let's go through the timeline.
Yeah.
Because I have to defend some people, even though you ended up looking silly when the actual news came out. When you first see that Joel Embiid is unavailable for what was, to that point, the biggest game of the year for the Sixers due to illness, and you had all the stuff in the past couple of weeks
The
with
Heat game.
Yeah, getting sick,
up
shoot around.
after the Heat, after the Heat game, he wakes up and doesn't feel well, and then he misses shoot around, and then he's benched for that game because the Wizards game, and he couldn't play in it. And you're thinking, really?
Yeah.
Really?
A lot of people were like, I can't defend this.
I don't think you need to say a lot. I think everyone was like, this is unbelievable.
Yeah.
This is unbelievable. You just thought, we just had this conversation. And you have players that were coming back. So everybody's minds went exactly to where they thought of, like, just rolling their eyes, because the narrative, and we talked about it on Tuesday, the narrative with Joel Embiid has been like, well, he's just not available. He's just not available because of whatever else. And you're thinking the biggest game of the year, a must win against the Rockets. And so that was the initial reaction, because that's all the information that everybody had.
Right. And I think for everyone who ends up looking like they went too strong against Joel Embiid or looking silly, you have to understand, I think that's a rightful reaction considering the track record.
Yeah, I don't think anybody can look at from the outside of somebody that, a fan or otherwise, that sent out a message on social media or talked to their friends or texted it. Because we all had those thoughts. I mean, you and I had this text.
Yeah.
And I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like, what's happening right now? You can't fault them or that mindset, given all of the history, the PTSD that people have.
And then it turns out that it is appendicitis, which is a serious medical condition that, Amy, you've gone through.
Yes, I've had that.
And not fun.
Awful, but probably one of the most painful things I've ever been through. And it was a similar situation. Woke up at 2:30 in the morning with a sharp, extremely painful, stabbing pain right in the side back area, and debilitating. Could barely stand up and walk, and had to get to the hospital and was in surgery. It got to the hospital a little after 3 a.m. and I was in surgery by 6 a.m.
Yeah, it's not great to go through, and it's also not great for the Sixers to have happen to their best player.
The timing of it.
It's just, you can't make it up. You legitimately can't make it up. And I think that was the perfect encapsulation yesterday of what we went through over the stage of a couple hours with Joel Embiid and his time here in this city. There is a tough balance to be struck of how much has he underdelivered based on availability, based on playoff performances, all of this stuff. That's part of the equation that will never go away. And then something like this happens, and there's no other way to look at it than how unlucky can one guy and one team, when you build it out to the Sixers as an organization, be when it comes to these kind of crazy things. You have both. You have both the under-delivering and the unluckiness merged into one, and every single time it just feels like something happens, whether it's his fault or not, that leads to this team being in a bad spot. And it seems like he's done for the rest of the regular season, undoubtedly. He most likely will not be available for the play-in unless something crazy happens with his recovery. And, well, then God only knows what happens with the Sixers as to whether or not they're able to advance without him.
Yeah, I mean, obviously right now you're looking at they're sitting in the 8th seed. They have a chance to get to the 7th seed. There is an outside chance they get to the 6th. Now, the only reason I say outside is because they would need the Raptors to lose that Nets game. I just don't know that that's going to happen. The Nets have nothing. The Nets got their doors blown off by the Pacers. So that's where they're at in their season. So I think you're looking at the 7-8 game. You're just trying to host that game, which would then probably be on Wednesday, the way that things would shake out because the arena wouldn't be available on Tuesday. So you want to be able to win that game, win one, call it a day. You're the 7 seed, and then you get, whatever, 3 days, 4 days off. It's just the timing couldn't be worse. If this happened 3 weeks ago, you'd feel a little bit better, right? Because you would have 3 weeks. You'd already had the sustained time without Joel Embiid, and you thought, all right, well, this is not ideal. But if there was ever a time, of course, we would have been saying the same thing of like, why us? This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But to have it happen with the third to last game of the season and the most important game, meaning you can kind of in your mind bank these wins. And I don't want to say that lightly because tonight this Pacers team they did beat the Nets by almost 40 points. You never really know. You don't want to take anybody lightly. But on paper, these are two teams in the Pacers and the Bucks that are not interested in winning. They're trying to lose. They've given up on their seasons, which is fine. So you thought if you're going to win out, it started with that Rockets game, and to wake up, I would have given anything to be a fly on the wall at team breakfast and be like, wait, I'm sorry, what happened?
Yeah,
he's where? Like, and obviously your first thought is like, unbelievable. I hope he's okay. It is a very, very, it's serious. If you don't catch, you don't have surgery, it can burst, then you get sepsis, and that's a whole can of worms you don't want to open. So I'm very grateful that they caught it. But the second thought is, you got to be kidding me.
That's everybody's reaction when you hear the appendicitis news for Joel Embiid. Now, something about the timeline, because people, while it is something that's rather common, a lot of people have been hearing, hey, I went through it, here's what it feels like, here's the timeline. A lot of people don't realize, hey, this isn't just a quick, you take out the appendix, you move on, he plays tonight or tomorrow night. So Tony Jones of The Athletic joined Unfiltered in the wake of the news breaking of appendicitis. He broke down the timeline for Joel Embiid, and it is not good for the Philadelphia 76ers when it comes to what they have to accomplish.
Well, he's definitely out for the remainder of the regular season. I don't see any scenario where he plays this weekend. Usually for a surgery like that, you're supposed to not do anything physical for 10 to 14 days. That's the average. So, you do that. Obviously, you're going to have a ramp-up period. That can take a week or two. So you're looking at a timeline conservatively, like if everything goes well, maybe 3 weeks. And 3 weeks from now, it's highly questionable whether the Philadelphia 76ers are still playing basketball. So there's a very real chance that this torpedoes Embiid's season, and whether he comes back is going to depend on how well the Sixers are playing without him, frankly.
Well, if you judge it by last night, where they lost 113 to 102 to the Houston Rockets, Paul George shot the ball, what'd you say, Amy, 8 times?
8 whole times.
And they clearly are not nearly as playoff viable or even play-in viable without Joel Embiid. To me, it feels like they're done and he's done. They're one and the same, and it is over. That is my thought when I see the Sixers' chances. We'll dive deeper into the actual chances because this is big news to react to in whole. A lot of branches off this tree today, but is that kind of where you're at?
No, I mean, I don't know that I'm really fully throw my arms up. That's all she wrote. I do think that this team can get to the postseason without Joel Embiid, because we're talking about winning the last two, which I think is completely capable. Because when you're looking at it, this was a back-to-back, right? Last night and tonight, and you're thinking, all right, well, he's going to play against the Rockets. You weren't going to play him against the Pacers. You shouldn't have to have Joel Embiid play against the Pacers. You should be able to win that game. And then obviously the Bucks game, a team that is mired in a lot of drama. That is not interested in winning either. So I thought, okay, if you can win those two games without Joel Embiid, now you're looking at a one-off. You probably against the Magic. And I would like their chances even without Joel Embiid. The one thing is that they do have, they obviously have a better record. They have a better offensive rating with Joel Embiid, but they're only a couple games under 500 without Joel Embiid. They have played so many games 41 games without him. And I think it's like 19 and 23 or in that range. I guess it's now 42 games without him. So they know how to do it. I think that there's scenarios that they can come up with on a one-off to make sure they get that 7 seed, as it were. And even if they lose that 7-8 game, you obviously get another bite at the apple to beat whoever's in that 9-10 game, which I would imagine if it's between the Hornets and the Heat, I would take my chances on the Hornets. I like the Sixers' chances in that. I know the Hornets came in and beat them earlier in the season without Joel, but there's not a matchup in there that I think that's going to be overwhelming in Charlotte's favor. So if that's how the cookie's going to crumble, I think they can still, they will still be in the playoffs as the 7 or the 8 seed once it starts on April 18th. That's when you're really getting into, I don't see a series that you win in any shape or form without Joel Embiid. I just don't see how it's viably possible. We were talking last night on post game, and Jim Lynam said it best. He's like, you need every single player to be the absolute best versions of themselves. And you saw that for stretches in the fourth quarter when they had that 20-2 run and got right back in it and cut it to 5. But not everybody was the best version of themselves. Paul George, that's not the best version of him. Shot the ball 8 times, 0 for 5 from 3.
Not great.
You can't have that.
Yeah.
And when the players talk about how everybody has to do their part, like Tyrese Maxey said last night, everyone has to. You can't not shoot the ball. You can't take any kind of play for granted. You can't not go after that extra rebound. I mean, they got crushed on the offensive boards again, and it's things like that when you go and you extrapolate it out into a playoff series, you think that the offense obviously runs better, but so does the defense. Everything runs better with Joel Embiid out there. He's such a big personality when it comes to the actual domination of the game offensively and defensively for the personality of the Sixers. So I think that they'll still be in the playoffs. I think they'll still make it as a 7 or 8 seed, but there's no realm in my mind that they would win a playoff series without Joel Embiid. I would love to come on here in 3 weeks and be like, remember I said there's no chance? Well, obviously I was an idiot, but I can't see it. I can't see that.
Yeah, and we're going to dive deeper into the implications for the actual season for the Sixers as we go throughout the show today. Because while I say I think they're done, I think they're cooked. No, Joe.
You think they're not even a 7 or 8 seed?
I think they can make it out of the play-in. I do, but this was always, hey, could they be dangerous in a first-round series?
Yeah.
And they're not going to be without Joel Embiid to me, especially Boston, Detroit. They get cooked in those series. So if beating somebody in a one-game play-in game and finding your way into the quote-unquote actual playoffs does it for you, be my guest. But for me, I wanted to at least hold out some semblance of hope that there could be something more. And you can't even really place blame on anybody at this point because it's a wild medical condition in a long
nothing
string.
Causes it. There was a lot of chatter. I know you saw it probably too on social media about like, well, remember he had that oblique. I'm like, that's not how appendicitis works. It's an acute onset, meaning it just comes out of nowhere. There's nothing that causes it. There's nothing you can do. There's nothing you ate. There's no injury or blow that you took to your body that gives you appendicitis.
Just happens. And
a
lot
of
things just happen
Of course it does.
to Joel Embiid. Oh, my goodness. So we'll be reacting to this big news throughout the day. That was not the only game that went on last night, though, the Sixers and Rockets. The Flyers also went up to Detroit, and I believe they're still taking penalties as we come on the air this morning. They lose 6-3. Special teams
didn't even
were
feel that close.
Absolute mess. It was not. They got like a goal with a minute and change remaining to cut it to 6-3, but they got their teeth kicked in what was the biggest game to this point of their season. And it's not. They still controlled their destiny.
Right. They got a little help. Blue Jackets getting smoked last night obviously helped quite a bit. And the fact that Detroit, while behind them and kind of trying to get where they are, is still a really, really strong outside chance that they're not. I mean, that would be really, really tough. They have like a 7% chance the Red Wings do. So.
Yeah. So that's fine for that. It's not what you want to see when they have all the momentum in the world.
It wasn't the greatest, but it wasn't the absolute end of the world. It wasn't appendicitis.
No, it was not. They still have all the guys that they had going into
appendixes.
that game. Yes, the appendixes are either
Fully
intact or removed. I don't know who's gone through that.
Good point.
The thing for that though is it was just another piling on. Like I tweeted out last night. I think I'm done with Philadelphia sports for the day. It was just one of those moments.
And scene.
Yeah. Well, some days you just have to lay your head on the pillow.
Unplug it and plug it back in for tomorrow.
And just get back up again and hope tomorrow is a better day. But because it is Friday, something that we're going to do, and we're going to open this up, you can go a lot of places with this on the Davis Honda text line. We'd love for you to join the show, 610-632-0975. You could call in at that number. You could text in. You could send voice memos at that number. And we're running on YouTube, as always, for everybody joining in on the show that way. We're going to do a Fix It Friday. And this is something that you could go realistically with, or you could go emotionally with. Because I know when you see something like this, especially with a lightning rod figure in this city like Joel Embiid, the rational response to this, to me, is, damn, that sucks. What are you going to do? Like, that's just... That's the luck of the draw, and the Sixers have been dealt 2-7 for the last 20 years, it feels like. But you could also go, hey, I need to see changes because I can't go through this again. And it opens up to all teams. Do you believe there's stuff that needs to be fixed with the Phillies? They've been shut out for 20 straight innings. Do you believe there's stuff that needs to be fixed for the Flyers? And that's more of a realistic, hey, they are still in a rebuild.
Right.
What needs to happen for this team to build more in future seasons? And then for the Eagles as well, with all the stuff going on, a quarterback hit piece. The star wide receiver might still be traded. You've got a brand new offensive staff nearly top to bottom. What do you want to fix in Philadelphia sports today? It could be something emotionally where it's just like, get rid of this guy or this player or this coach because I can't do it anymore. Or it could be your realistic solution to the problems we're facing because, God, we have
There are plenty of them.
Do you think we'll fix anything today, Amy, for Philadelphia sports?
Absolutely. That's why you come here on Friday mornings, is to get everything resolved. It's Fix It Friday. Just like that old ex, you can do it, everyone. If you just put your mind to it, you can fix them.
Yeah, we're going to need a lot of super glue and duct tape for this one. But let's start with the Sixers in that vein so we can get the ball rolling for the idea of Fix It Friday. And we're going to have bigger questions for you throughout the show on this. So it's not just a total open forum. We'll lead you in the directions that we're going to go. And a lot of it framed around this Joel Embiid stuff. So for these Sixers, whether it's this year or the immediate future, is there something where you say this is the number one fix that I need to see for this organization?
I mean, yeah, the number one fix, I don't know. You can't limit it to just one thing with this team, unfortunately. And I'm looking forward. I don't know that there's anything you can do right now, realistically, or even emotionally, besides turn back time and just pray that there is no appendectomy coming. But going forward, you have to wonder about the makeup, the composition of the team. You have to worry about where that money was spent. There's going to be a lot of changes coming up in the next year or so when you look at how cap hits and stuff are going to start taking shape and how you're going to have to pay players and keep them and build around certain players. I don't know that this current roster right now, looking at it, is what's going to be able to get you to the promised man. And then there's a lot. That's not to say I don't like a lot of pieces in the current roster, right? We were talking about this. VJ Edgecombe has played 72 games, averaging 36 minutes. He's been as advertised, better than advertised. Who am I kidding? I don't think you thought that the third overall pick would be this good for this long, sustaining success. I think the backcourt of he and Maxey is something that you can absolutely pencil in, and you're good there. But every other position for me, including the guys that I really enjoy, is absolutely up in the air. And that goes for Quentin Grimes. It goes for Kelly Oubre. It goes for Paul George for sure. And it goes for the center position and the backup center positions, because we saw that on full display last night. Alperen Şengün did it whatever he wanted against Dembona. You had to bring in Andre Drummond, and that's not a knock on Andre Drummond in any way, shape, or form. He knows the tale. He knows what he's supposed to do, and he came in and played almost 30 minutes, and he played well. But he's not an offensive player, right? You can't get 4 points out of your backup center role. And I feel like it's the same refrain that we've had for a decade at this point. Who's the backup? Who's the backup to Joel Embiid? You're never going to replace him. It's never going to happen.
And they haven't answered that question.
Ever.
And when they initially did with the first Drummond time, when he had a little bit more gas in the tank.
A little bit more gas.
You have to move him as part of the Ben Simmons. I would say it's a whole.
So to me, those are some of the same questions. When you look at the way that the NBA, and it's such an evolving league, the way that all these teams are built, the length that they have on the opposing teams compared to the Sixers is remarkable. I think about, and I love Tyrese Maxey, and I would never trade him in the history of the world. He, for me, personally, is a Sixer for life. I can't imagine a world you would trade him. You need to have him some help, though, back there, because 3 games in a row he went against Asor Thompson with the Pistons, 6-7. Then he went against Stephon Castle, 6-6 with the Spurs. And then last night, the twin to Asor, Amen Thompson, 6-7. That's about the range that you're looking at. And that's the West, and I understand that when you're looking at the last 2 teams, but it's also in the East. That's the Pistons. Certainly there's a lot of length on the Celtics. There's a lot of length on the Cavaliers. There's a lot of length on the Magic. These are the teams that you're going to be going against. The Raptors have a lot of length. The Sixers don't have that. I preach it. You guys have had me on throughout the season. I've always said, if you're going to get anybody, get an extra wing. There's just not enough length on this Sixers squad to compete with the wings that are out there in the NBA. And I think that that's going to be the same thing going forward.
Sounds like a lot of work to do. And the tough thing with the Sixers, because if you believe, like I essentially do, that Joel Embiid, that's a final nail in the coffin for the 2026 Sixers postseason run. Like, sure, they'll be in the play-in, but without him, they are very much capped, and this news is, quote-unquote, the end of the season. And who knows what they've got. So I'm still going to be watching. I'm still going to be hoping against hope. But if you believe that, it opens up the question of, well, tearing it down. We've
what do
heard
you do?
that
Yeah.
with Daryl Morey's job security, Nick Nurse's job security. The problem with the Sixers is they feel like a half-built house because of the availability thing. So can you rightfully say, yeah, I'm done with this when we haven't even seen this for an extended period of time? It's just such a tough spot for them to be. Part of it they've done to themselves. Part of it,
Fluky.
the sports gods are just going to make Joel Embiid's appendix try and explode. And what are you going to do? It's such a tough spot to be. So coming up next, I want to know where people are at with Joel Embiid this morning. Because like we said, perfect encapsulation of his time in Philadelphia. I say perfect. You understand what I mean. It's not good, but unlucky. But also there's the idea of under-delivering. We're going to take a deeper dive into that. How do you look at his time here in Philadelphia? It is Kincade Salciunas. I'm Connor Thomas in for Andrew. Amy Fadul in for John. We're back after this here on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Now on 97.5 The Fanatic Sports Update.
Not a good night for Philadelphia sports. I'm Sean Rodman, and Joel Embiid is out for the foreseeable future. The Sixers announced that Joel Embiid had successful surgery in Houston yesterday for appendicitis. Nick Nurse spoke pregame on the shocking loss of Embiid.
We had like an unbelievable day as a team yesterday. I mean, we had a great practice and great film session, and we were getting up and down the court, and he was a part of all that. You know, that's what hits you a little bit in the stomach when you get that news.
To make the playoff push worse, the Sixers fell on the road to Houston Rockets 113-102. Maxey, Edgecombe, and Grimes all had 20-plus points, but it was not enough for the Sixers. They're back in action tonight on the road against the Pacers. You can listen to the game right here on The Fanatic. Pregame coverage begins at 6. The Flyers lost to the Red Wings last night 6-3. They now sit 1 point above the Islanders for the final spot in the Metro Division. Flyers did get some help, though, with the loss from the Blue Jackets last night, who are still 2 points behind them. Flyers are back in action tomorrow in Winnipeg. The Phillies, though, they're in action tonight. They're at home against the Diamondbacks. Jesus Luzardo is scheduled to get the start for the Phillies, and right-hander Michael Soroka for the Arizona Diamondbacks. First pitch is at 6:40. I'm Sean Rodman on the home of the Sixers, Flyers, and Union, 97.5 The Fanatic and the Fanatic app.
Fanatic.
Facebook.com/975 The Fanatic Philadelphia. More of Kincade and Salciunas coming your way now.
This hour of Kincade Salciunas is presented by Bradford White Water Heaters. Bradford White, they're here for the pro.
It is a Fix It Friday on Kincade and Salciunas. I'm Connor Thomas, in for Andrew. Amy Fadul to my left, in for John Kincade. Both of them on vacation. So hopefully they're enjoying it. Andrew Salciunas is never allowed to go on vacation again because all that's happened since he's left is Joel Embiid is in the hospital. The Sixers season might be over. We've got all kinds of big news dropping left and right from the national to the local. It's been one heck of a week here in Philadelphia, and I don't want to call it the cherry on top because there is nothing sweet about this Joel Embiid news, but it really is the piece de resistance that you have.
It's the coup de grace.
Yes.
It's not the piece de resistance.
Is that the expression? My French is a little.
It's the piece de resistance. I feel like that has like a positive connotation. Yeah. Maybe it doesn't.
Tongue in cheek. I don't know. The French I know of, the FCC will not allow me to say on air.
Good point.
And I was saying a lot of that stuff yesterday when the Joel Embiid news came down. He has appendicitis. Went to the hospital yesterday. He has to have the emergency appendectomy surgery. He is out for the remainder of the regular season, at least part of what could be a postseason run. And if the Sixers don't advance, well, he's probably done for the year. So it's a tough spot to be for the Sixers. It's a tough spot for Joel. You think about, and we've been talking, Amy, about the reaction that the team must have had to getting this news. Like seriously? Whether that's a player, whether that's Nick Nurse, whether that's the higher-ups in the front office, there's nothing you can do about it, but it is one of those how does this keep happening type of thing. But then you also have to think about the man in the middle of all of it. If you're Joel Embiid and you wake up and you're like, man, I want to play basketball today, you wake up to splitting pain in your side, and in the middle of the night, you've got to go to the hospital, and you find out, appendicitis, you're done for a while, buddy. Yeah. It's like, why always me?
Well, and you heard from Nick Nurse, they had practiced the day before. They had, quote, a great practice. We had a great practice.
Yeah, we have that. And you can hear the tone in his voice of just, I don't want to say defeated, but just kind of this.
He's like, here we're going. Everybody's in.
Yeah, so here's what Nick Nurse had to say in reaction to the Joel Embiid news when he got a chance to sit in front of a microphone.
We had like an unbelievable day as a team yesterday. I mean, we had a great practice and great film session, and we were getting up and down the court, and he was a part of all that. You know, that's what hits you a little bit in the stomach when you get that news.
You have to feel for Joel.
Joel Embiid goes through a practice, and I think it's something you touched on just a moment ago. When you're looking at this Sixers team, if everybody's firing on all cylinders, right? All the big three, you want to call them that, of Maxey, Embiid, and Paul George are playing well. You have the rookie and VJ Edgecombe. You have Kelly Oubre. You have guys off the bench like Quentin Grimes. If everybody's firing on all cylinders, you thought, all right, this is a team that can make a little noise, right? There's no reason you think that they couldn't. They've got three guys that are capable of dropping 30 points at any given night. Two guys that are, Tyrese Maxey, fifth leading scorer in the league. All right, there's something that could happen. And I think at the beginning of what you heard from Nick Nurse there, you feel that. And if I'm Joel Embiid, I'm thinking, all right, well, the timing's great. We all just came back. That we're going on the upswing. We're having this great practice ahead of the biggest game of the year, a must win. And then to wake up with that stabbing pain, I don't know that you could ever, and I don't know that he could ever fully probably say in words how defeating that must have felt, of like, here we go again. What is happening to me now? This is a guy that 2 years ago woke up and couldn't feel the side of his face. Like with the Bell's, like the level of defeating, I can't even imagine. I don't think anybody has gone through any, I don't know people, I'm sure everybody's got like health issues or whatever, but to have them repeatedly of things that were out of your control like this, there's nothing that you do that gets you appendicitis. You don't eat anything. You don't take a punch. There's nothing you do that gets you this. It's a freak injury. And he had it on the morning of the biggest game of the year. You can't write it. If you wrote it, you wouldn't believe it.
Yeah, and me as an empath, I want to live in a world where the realistic reaction to this is, man, I really feel for this guy. But as a realistic person who has seen the entirety of Joel Embiid's time here in Philadelphia, I know that to some people, he will not be a sympathetic figure. Not just looking at the appendicitis, but looking at the whole picture of his time with the Philadelphia 76ers. There are plenty of folks who are waking up today. They say, with this, in this instance, yeah, that sucks, and there's nothing he could do. Right. But I'm not going to change my opinion on what Joel Embiid is in my time remembering him with this basketball team. Not remembering because it's over, but we'll talk later on in the show what the long-reaching implications could be for this. But because of that, we have a really interesting question on our Twitter poll today, which we're going to open up here in a second, and then we're going to discuss the question a little bit deeper in this segment. But the Twitter poll is always up, thanks to Dr. Avidan Appel of Iron Mountain Men's Health. Sean, it's Joel Embiid related. What is our question today?
Our question today is, what word best describes Joel Embiid's career in Philadelphia? Option 1, unlucky. Option 2, under-delivering. And the early returns, unlucky at 60% and under-delivering at 40%, although I've seen it go back and forth already.
I'm really interested to how that's going to play out.
Yeah, it's interesting because there are just the two. The obvious answer is both.
Yeah.
But that's why we only have the two options. On its face, unlucky is what I would say, but I completely understand. And we had this conversation the other day of why people have that level of frustration, because while there are injuries that are completely out of his control, like this one being out right now, there's nothing he could have done. There's other things that you think about, like, well, if you've taken a little bit better care, if you didn't fall on the ground, people have all kinds of rhetoric when they talk about Joel Embiid. There's a lot of things that you see from him that you think that he could have done a better job, right? And I think that even in the beginning of his career, when the Sixers were first kind of starting to make positive gains, there were some things that Joel Embiid realized that he needed to do to better himself for the postseason. I think we always point to 2019 as kind of a bellwether time for him, of him realizing that I can't just roll out there and be the best player. I actually have to take care of myself. I have to train myself in certain ways, take care of my body in certain ways. And that's obviously, he'd have been in the league for a number of years at that point. And so you'd seen that maturation process. You just have not seen the results of that for whatever reason. So I understand why people are going to say he's under-delivered, because it's always going to be tied with the fact that he's one of the best players that's ever going to put on a Sixers uniform. And that's why there's the frustration.
Yeah, and I don't think it's just like a Philadelphia thing where we are very tough on our own here in Philadelphia. We're a very critical fan base, and part of that, well, most of that comes from passion. It really does. So I don't ever...
Because they care. If you didn't care, then you wouldn't have any kind of opinion on it.
I don't view that as a bad thing. But in any market, in any town, any sport, any team, a player with the talent level of Joel Embiid, who has the results of a Joel Embiid-led team or a team that has him on it, the narrative would be the same. You have all of this ability, and you've had opportunities, and while there are certainly other factors of why this team has continued to come up short, you have to point at the premier player, the face of the franchise, the MVP, and say, hey, man, under-delivering is part of this equation, no matter how unlucky some of this stuff is. I don't think, my gut feeling would be that the majority of the fan base doesn't look at Joel Embiid as a sympathetic figure when you look back at his time, just because of what we hear when we bring him up on these airwaves. But maybe I'm wrong, and that poll will tell us whether it is something that you're viewing as he's just gotten so unlucky, and that will be the story to me, or if it is more the issues that whether he has created or has opened up with the way he's played or has handled his time when you look at the whole career. It's a very complicated saga, the Joel Embiid time here in Philadelphia. And outside of that, because this is not just a Joel Embiid conversation today, the organization has had a bunch of other crazy stuff to go on top of the Joel Embiid storyline.
They have to be the only organization that has 2 number 1 picks that forgot how to play basketball.
How does that happen?
They just forgot how to shoot. They just forgot how to shoot. 2 high-level players that just thought, I don't know how to do that. The one thing I'm supposed to do, I don't know how to do that anymore. Number 1 overall picks, franchise changers. When you draft a player number 1 overall, it changes your franchise, for good or for bad, because you've invested so much in that player, right? It's a number 1 overall. But 2 of them forgot how to play basketball.
And one was like kind of right off the rip with Markelle Fultz.
Which is wild, because he was not that guy in college.
No.
Perfectly fine shooting.
I don't know if that's weirder than Ben Simmons being like you could see him, you could squint and see an all-NBA player, and then just,
Fultz is weirder to me.
Yeah. But
I don't know. They're both
knowing
weird.
Ben did it, and then not. See, this is just, and that's just one small
That's one
offshoot.
small little thing that's
Oh,
like
my
the Sixers.
God.
When people think about a snake bit franchise and you go back nationally and people talk about the Cubs and how they were snake bit for the longest time and the Red Sox and whatever the curse of all that, there has got to be some kind of investigation with the paranormal people to see what's going on and who's on like an Indian burial ground or which doctor we need to call because there's something wrong.
I want to find that snake and whatever species it is.
I don't know what it is.
I want it extinct
I've never,
because I can't do it anymore.
there's no way there's a franchise in professional sports that's had the kind of crazy luck, or it's not luck, crazy happenstance with some of the stuff. Your star player getting appendicitis the morning, 3 games to go in the season of like a must-win game, 2 number 1 overall picks forgetting how to play back.
The list goes on. So here's what we want
I
you to
almost
do.
like can't even like talk about it.
We could do 4 hours of just listing what's gone crazy. So we'd love to hear from you on the Davis Honda text line.
You got to fix it, though. It's Fix It Friday.
632-0975. Yes, that is the theme. And that could be any of the teams. So we're going to open up throughout the show. We're going to check in on the Flyers, Eagles, Phillies. We'll get into all of it. But also that Joel Embiid conversation. Is he unlucky or is he more under-delivering in the totality of his time here in Philadelphia? This appendicitis thing, this is not under-delivering. I don't want people to take this as, oh, he's letting them down again. But it brings you back to the full picture of how you evaluate this guy, a very complicated figure in Philadelphia sports. So we'll check in on what the people are saying next and just your reaction to that wild news yesterday. I also want to know, coming up, where are people at with the Flyers after a tough loss? Because having a bandwagon group jumping on with the team is great. They're also very quick to jump back off when the team loses because you're a little bit less invested than the diehards. So where are folks at that might have just bought in to the Flyers after they see them lose that way to the Red Wings last night? We will talk about them and their path forward. It's Kincade and Salciunas, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Salciunas, Philly Sports Talk, 97.5 The Fanatic and the Fanatic app.
Oh, okay. Well, in case you missed the biggest news, Joel Embiid, again, the Sixers are cursed. He's cursed. Everything's bad. Everybody's sad.
Hey, happy Friday, everyone.
That's why we're doing a Fix It Friday, because there are a lot of things that are wrong right now. And it's not all gloom and doom.
Wrong, yeah. There's things that are have gone sideways. I'm not talking about Sixers that's gone more than sideways. But there's other fix-it issues, right, throughout the Philadelphia sports that you would like to lend your expertise to, whether it's emotional or something realistic. Because I think there's some realistic fix-its for the Flyers when you're watching what they've done this year. Things that you can think about, if they just had X, Y, and Z, then it'd be a different. And not just for the Flyers, but when you look at how other teams are playing them and other teams are doing well, I think you can take away from that.
Here's a realistic thing for the Philadelphia Flyers. Trevor Zegras has been really good, you've seen at center. One of the things I've noticed because power play has been an issue for them.
Yeah.
And when you go back
last night.
a couple of years, you see the issue with the power. They haven't been good on the power play, it feels like, for a while. But part of the issue is they couldn't even enter the offensive zone with a man advantage. And part of that is they had to try and find a way to pass the puck to the corners to get up. Now Trevor Zegras, when he is on the ice for the power play, he is able, because he's so good stick handling.
Yeah, he's a good finisher.
He's just a solo zone entry.
Yep.
And that's what having a capable center does. So with that in mind, knowing that center is a weak spot in general for the Flyers, I know that them getting a high-level center, maybe a bigger-bodied guy than Trevor Zegras that has that ability, but can also add to depth for the power play, that it doesn't fully fix the issue, but that takes it to another level. That's a simple, practical solution of, hey, you need a center. It helps with the power play. It helps with them in general in the way that they want to play. And that is the example of hey, if you want to fix something as the Flyers continue this rebuild, and they're still in a playoff push.
Right. They're very much in control of their own destiny. I think that's really important to say. They're not having to watch scoreboards as much. If they take care of business, they should be secured and all is well. And you're hoping those last two games, they're obviously at Winnipeg on Saturday, and their last two games are at home against two teams that already have Carolina and Montreal, that it should have everything all locked up. Carolina has everything locked up, and I think Montreal will at that point as well. So it just depends on how those games shake out. But I think for realistic solutions on a fix-it type of vibe for the Flyers, you can learn from everything this season, right? You can go forward of your example of the center position is perfect. Of all right, we've seen what works well for us. We need more of that. We can't just have the one option. And then you also see what everybody else has done well. And I think you can take away from that when you're looking at the other teams, Sixers, for example. The fix it is more, I think, of an emotional reaction of I want to fix things that I cannot control right now.
Right. If it's you wake up today and you're just I feel for Joel Embiid, but I'm done. I can't do it anymore. Paul George takes 8 shots last night in the biggest game of the year.
7 whole
points. I can't do it. I don't know. And as we continue, we're not going to spend all 4 hours on Joe, but he's going to be a big part of it's the biggest news. It's all over ESPN. It's the biggest NBA news. It's just another how in the world did this happen? But if you're at a point where it's just I need to move on from Joel Embiid and Paul George, even if that might not be realistic contract-wise, that's part of what we're doing here on quote-unquote Fix It Friday is what would you do to change where you're at with any of the teams in this town? Now, with the Flyers, Amy, I want to ask you about this because they had a tough loss last night, did not look good at all in a 6-3 loss in Detroit to the Red Wings. They still have a real look at this thing. They're very much in control of their own destiny. I wonder where the momentum with the fan base goes. Do you think people are bought in enough with the Flyers that a loss like last night will not deter the excitement? Or do you think that so much of this is people jumping on the bandwagon for the first time in years that then sit down to watch that game and they're like, damn it, same old Flyers, which I don't think that's what it is. But where do you think the mentality with this team is?
I think there's a little bit of the latter there. I think there was a couple people that hadn't been as locked in, and then they tune back in and think. And that game was 6-3 was not the result of that game. The game might as well have been honestly 6-1, but 6-2 is more realistic, right? They were never in it. They got beat on the man advantage. They got beat on every aspect. They changed goalies twice. It was just nothing went well. That's almost to me as somebody that watches them. A lot more than just a casual fan, clearly, given my nature of what I do. it's almost better to have like a real stinker of a game that you can flush immediately than if they had gone down to the wire and just absolutely just they were never in it. Like, I don't know. To me, it's easier to stomach if you were never in a game and you just had a real stinker and you could just chalk it up to like an off night.
We're a bad team. We had a bad night.
That's where I would kind of lean, but I feel like there's people that absolutely tuned back in last night and are like, all right, let's see what this Flyers team has. And they see the score like, never mind. I think, though, overall, the Flyers fan base is a more locked-in fan base. I think that they're much more invested, and so they could see the forest for the trees, so to speak. I think they see overall this is a better team than the 6-3 result says. So I think they're still feeling that level of hope for the playoffs. And when you look at the standings, they did get help from the Islanders. That obviously helped. The Blue Jackets losing, that helps. So they are a point clear of the Islanders, 2 points clear of the Blue Jackets.
Yeah.
I got to check all my numbers on that, 92, 91, and 90. So I think that those are really important things. But, yeah, there was absolutely a couple people that looked back in and was like, hey, what are the oh, seriously? So I think that that's kind of a one-off. If you have another stinker of a game in Winnipeg, then I think that you would have a little bit more concern. But for me, I didn't take anything away. It was disappointing.
Right.
Because when we, for lack of a better description, when we're watching all these games, we're all kind of in the same pool. So I'm sitting near Scott Hartnell and Al Morgani and Jordan Hall and Ashlyn Sullivan, and they're sitting near Jim Lynam and Mark Jackson and me and our producer Brian Brennan, and we're all kind of going back and forth. And you kept hearing the horn, and we would just turn around like where our offices are. I'm like, our desks are. I was like, what's going on over there? Like, Aim, it was 5-on-3. It's not good. I'm like, Scotty, what happened there? But you kind of dismiss that one. Given the fact the Flyers had been playing so well. To me, that's where I went just with that specific result last night. I think overall, the majority of people probably thought I still feel okay.
Yeah.
I still feel okay.
I hope that's where people are at
But
today.
there's definitely some people that looked at that and were like, you got it. Seriously?
Yeah.
I was ready to get back in, and you lose 6-3?
And every game matters. So now there's going to be a lot of emotional swing from night to night with this team, which is a good thing because that means you have stuff on the line, which we haven't seen for them for a while. So what do we have on the Davis Honda text line this morning? We've been talking heavily about the Joel Embiid appendicitis news and everything that brings out of you as far as reaction is concerned, and also the Fix It Friday. Shawnee, what do we have?
All right, well, we have a few people checking in saying that they are wondering what the reasons why the sports gods are doing this to us, but we'll start with the Fix It Friday for now. This person's saying, good morning. Is there any way we can chronologically freeze Joel Embiid every year and just thaw him out in June for the playoffs?
Yeah, put him in the cryogenic chamber.
So wait, whoa. You have to thaw him in June.
A little late, yeah. I think we got to thaw him a little bit
That's
earlier.
the finals. We're going to have to thaw him, late April. You got to put that. You move it from the freezer to the fridge.
Here's the thing. Like, you kind of had points this year where you did that. It wasn't completely cryogenically freezing him because let's be scientifically realistic here. I love sci-fi, but he was banged up throughout the year at points. They were very cautious with the way they handled him. They made sure that they weren't overexerting him, and if he had anything at all going on, they either chose to sit him down or they gave him the luxury to say, hey, I'm going to take this one. I need it. Knee doesn't feel right. Oblique doesn't feel right, whatever. And then you get to 3 games out, and he's fine, and his appendix just goes.
I just go back to what Nick Nurse said. We had a great practice. Everybody's running up and down. We looked at everything. He was out there. And you could just hear the dejection of and then we get this at 3 o'clock in the morning, we find out.
There's nothing you can do.
But I like the idea of freezing him, but the thing is you need him to get to that point.
Yeah, right.
He's very helpful during the regular season as well.
I don't really want a max contract player frozen for the whole season.
But it is, I think we have talked about, just get him in bubble wrap. Bubble wrap him and then unwrap him in mid-April.
But that's a perfect example of Fix It Friday. It can be emotional, right?
I think it has to be sometimes.
What needs to change? And it's not just with the Sixers. There's a lot of stuff in this town where it's just like, man, we've always got problems. We do have some great stuff going on. But the Sixers are not in a great spot right now. And what does the future look like for the Sixers with the Joel Embiid news? Not just this season. We look at the far-reaching potential implications coming up as we get into the 7 o'clock hour. It's Kincade Salciunas, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Now on 97.5 The Fanatic Sports Update.
Joel Embiid out indefinitely. I'm Sean Rodman, and the Sixers announced that Joel Embiid had successful surgery in Houston yesterday for his appendicitis. Tony Jones of The Athletic joined Unfiltered yesterday and told us how long we should expect Embiid to be out for.
Well, he's definitely out for the remainder of the regular season. I don't see any scenario where he plays this weekend. Usually for a surgery like that, you're supposed to not do anything physical for 10 to 14 days. You're looking at a timeline conservatively, maybe 3 weeks.
To make the playoff push worse, the Sixers fell on the road in Houston 113-102. Maxey, Edgecombe, Grimes all had 20-plus points, but it was not enough for the Sixers. They're back in action tonight against the Pacers on the road. You can listen to the game right here on the Fanatic, and pregame coverage begins at 6. Flyers lost to the Red Wings last night 6-3. They now sit 1 point above the Islanders for the final spot in the Metro Division after the Islanders won their game last night. Flyers did get some help, though, with the Blue Jackets losing, who are still 2 points behind. Flyers are back in action tomorrow night in Winnipeg. The Phillies are back in action at home tonight against the Diamondbacks. Jesus Luzardo scheduled to get the start for the Phils. First pitch is at 6:40. This update's sponsored by Mothers Against Drunk Driving. For victims of drunk and drug driving, your grief is unique, but you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call the 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org. I'm Sean Rodman on The Fanatic.
Middays with Marks. Now more of Kincade and Salciunas.
97.5 The Fanatic and the Fanatic app.
So we're reacting to the big news from yesterday. Joel Embiid, appendicitis. He has to go to the hospital, get emergency surgery. He is out for an extended period of time with the postseason right on the horizon for the Sixers, and them still playing big games in the regular season. They fall to the Rockets last night, obviously without Joel Embiid. And this team's ceiling, floor, everything completely changes without the big man available. And the difference this time from the folks who will be very critical of Joel, and we're leaving room open to you today to be critical of Joel when you look at the entirety of his time here in Philadelphia. He's not blameless. I don't think there's anybody that's worn a Sixers logo for the past however long that this has been going on that is quote unquote blameless. But in this instance, you can't wake up today and be mad at the guy. It kind of handcuffs you to the idea of what in the world are we supposed to do with this? But that is in the moment as you look at this season. The woe is me, Sixers are cursed, and we'll dive deeper into that feeling later on in the show. That is for where we sit right now with 3 games remaining in the regular season. But there are more potentially far-reaching implications with this Joel Embiid news. So Tony Jones joined Unfiltered yesterday. We already played the part where he talked about Joel Embiid's timeline, probably looking at conservatively 3 weeks for the recovery from an appendectomy, which is not ideal. But he also talked about the future and how Joel Embiid's future depends on what happens with the organization. Bill and Ricky were asking him, like, could this be the end of Embiid's time in Philadelphia if things significantly change in the offseason? Here's what Tony Jones had to say.
Well, I think that's going to determine on what happens around the organization. Here's the thing, you don't want to speculate too much because, the story is still being told. What if the Sixers get the 8th seed, they upset the Detroit Pistons and somehow make a run to the conference finals? Unlikely, yes, but what if? So, you don't want to speculate until, the story is completely told. But, if this thing goes off the rails, let's say they actually don't get out of the play-in, don't make the playoffs, then, how long can the organization go without making some kind of major fundamental change? And if there's a major fundamental change, like all corporations, if somebody else comes in, that person might see things differently. So, I would think that, the season is still results-based in terms of what happens in the offseason. But at this point, I don't think that you can rule anything out.
Doesn't think you can rule anything out, which here's what that puts on the table. If you go into the offseason, I'll say the specifics because Tony's trying to go more general there, covers the team, does a great job for The Athletic. I'm just some dummy on the radio, so I'll spell it out for anyone else who is a fellow dummy. Like, this is, if we go into the offseason and Daryl Morey loses his job as president of basketball operations, if Nick Nurse loses his job as head coach and the Sixers decide, hey, we're done with this era of Sixers basketball, we need to do something different. When you bring somebody new in those positions, they're going to want to bring in their guys, whether that's roster, whether that's coaching staff, whether that's front office, depending on how high they would potentially go up. Now, they could keep both Daryl Morey and Nick Nurse. But if that happens, well, then you open yourself up to complete organizational change, which could be moving on from players like Joel Embiid or Paul George or really a lot of folks on the roster. I think Tyrese is safe. I think VJ's safe.
Yes.
And outside of those two, if they move on from the hierarchy of this organization, the higher-ups, well, that changes potentially everything. So with that in mind, Amy, I'll ask you, is there a chance that this is potentially the end of Joel Embiid's time here in Philadelphia, that we've seen him play I'll go dramatic with it, we've seen him play his last basketball game for the Sixers?
Wow. And honestly, I don't know that I ever thought that we would come to this day. Is there a potential? Sure, there's always a potential. Is it a realistic potential? I'm probably leaning more so yes than not. And I don't know that I ever thought that I was going to say that. There's so many different variables when it comes to this, and this is in no way reflection of what's currently going on with Joel Embiid. This is a freak thing, appendicitis. You can't. There's nothing. It's just one of those things. But again, it's one of those things with the same player, and I don't want to trade a player or drop a player just because he's injury prone, because the upside of Joel Embiid is just so high. And there's the rhetoric out there, and I talk to a lot of people, and I know you do too, when you're out and about and people want to talk to you about stuff, and given the fact that I do a lot of the Sixers shows, people usually want to talk to me about the Sixers or A.J. Brown. It's really
everybody wants to talk about
A.J.
A.J.
between all those things right now, but they're like, well, what do you think? What do you think realistically, like, what's going to happen? And they'll be like, what's going to happen is that he's going to go somewhere else and win a championship. Like that, you have that because that's just the Philadelphia way. That's like what our mind goes to of like, of course, whoever's going to leave us is going to do really well. That's what we think. I don't personally really truly believe that Joel Embiid will not be a Sixer, but there is a strong indication from a lot of people out there, not like insiders. I'm not getting like insider access or anything. But I think there's a lot of thought for a lot of people, fans, and otherwise, like this might be it. And it's not because of Joel Embiid getting appendicitis, but it's the overall of like how much longer can they be tied to such a max contract for a player that doesn't play that much.
Okay, so I'm going to say this, and I need people to not take it like as I'm trying to be as little like fanboy as possible here. I love Joel Embiid. I do, and I don't want this to sound overly dramatic or overly emotional. But I don't know how I'll ever feel okay about his time with the Philadelphia 76ers or really as a basketball player in general if this is it. Like, this will crush me.
Because there's so much invested in him, and I'm with you. Andrew and you and I always joke, like, people want to call us Joel Embiid apologists and whatever. That's fine. If that's what you want to call me, that's okay.
Yeah.
The upside with him has just been so high. He is such a high-level player. But as soon as you say that sentence, you have to say when he's been on the court.
Yeah.
And I think that there comes a time in a lot of people's minds of like, I can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not there. I don't want to see him move on from the Sixers. I want to see him remain a Sixer. I just feel like that even if you get 50 games from him, 50 games from a high-level Joel Embiid is still going to be worth it. But you're almost at the tipping point right now. And I don't want to have appendicitis be my tipping point.
That's the thing.
That's for me. Like, I just was like, I can't have this. If this was like something where he was going for the ball and it was like a basketball injury and I thought, well, they're just snake bitten, maybe they should. I don't want to have appendicitis be my tipping point.
Yeah,
I can't get there.
I'd rather, like, let's go down the list, right? The number one thing where it would be like, okay, it's time to move on from Joel Embiid. It's time for this organization to go in a different way. You're healthy going into the postseason. He underperforms in a game. He just can't get it done. And it doesn't seem like physically he has what he needs to be the level of player he was earlier on in his career. That's number one. If that happens and you want to move on, I get it, and I can accept that. If it's an on-court injury, like you were just bringing up, like you get to the point where people talk about the condition of his knees and how long he's going to be able to continue to do this for. And if there's something where it just shows you physically this guy can't play this game at a level you need him to anymore, his body is betraying him, not appendicitis, but in the actual sports sense, and you have to move on. I understand that. But this is not any of that. This is outside the realm of who he is as a basketball player and what his availability is for the NBA. This is just some freak thing that could only happen to the Sixers and Joel Embiid. And if this is the way that it ends, that'll be, it's the Sopranos cut to black ending. It's never going to do it
happened?
for me. Like, that's not it.
That
can't be it. And all the time we've invested, for everyone who's out on Joel Embiid, sure, yeah, I understand how you've gotten here. But think about the time we've gone through and everything emotionally you've invested into a franchise that have built themselves around Joel Embiid. It's not just with him here. All of the process led to him. This is decades and decades of Sixers basketball that circled around this man. And if it's his damn appendix, like, if that's how this ends, I might be in a padded room, Amy. That might be how I spend my summer.
Like this. This can't end.
I want to know if
Not
other
like
people
this.
feel that, because
But like you said, there's gonna be chunks of people be like, nope, I don't care what it was. I have to be out. And I think there's a lot of people that they have to protect their mental health when it comes to things like this, because they're just like, I can't take it anymore. And I get that. I totally understand. I'm not there yet, but I think that I know that there are people that are like, that's it. I don't care what it was.
So we're going to talk a little bit more about the Sixers outside of the Joel Embiid part of it, because the changes to the organization, he's the focus today, but that doesn't just mean him. We'll get into that in a second, but I want to see what people are saying on the text line here. You can check out the Davis Honda text line at 610-632-0975. You can feel the Davis difference at Davis Honda in Burlington. What do we have from the people today, Shawnee?
Yeah, we have a few people just letting their emotions out, ranting, and this person checking in saying, I'm done with the excuses. Every single year, he is always injured, right before or during the playoffs. This is going to sound harsh, but it's the truth. He's a loser. He is a loser. There's always an excuse, whether it's his fault or not, whether it's snake-bitten or unlucky. He is simply a loser.
That's too strong for me.
Me too.
I can't.
like, I'm not going to go there, especially, like, this isn't, you use the word excuse, that texter. That's not what this situation is. But I think what they're trying to express there is just the feeling of it never working out. I want to get down to the base emotion that leads you to that far point.
Yeah. How did you get there?
Like, if you ask me right now, well, Joel Embiid, can I close my eyes and imagine him hoisting a Larry O'Brien? I can't, whether that's here or elsewhere, because so much of the story around this guy is just coming up short, whether it's his availability, whether it is chances where he's been available and just hasn't had great playoff series, whether it's the supporting cast or the organization. So I understand why you feel on that side of the coin. Saying loser like 3 or 4 times in there is a little too much for me.
Because you're putting it on him. I understand, again, if this was another injury where you felt like Joel Embiid had somehow caused it with his play or the way that he had conditioned himself, whatever it is that you wanted to come up with, I can understand how maybe someone would get there with that kind of strong feelings. But that's why, for me, when you were talking about it, I can't be out right now on him not being a Sixer because of appendicitis ending his time. I can't get there.
Yeah.
There's nothing that could have been done. There's nothing that he did to himself or anybody did to him that causes appendicitis. It is the all-encompassing of, like, what the heck is going on? What is going on?
Yep.
But I understand why people feel that way. I think that the loser thing, I'm never going to get on there. I think that that's a mischaracterization of Joel Embiid overall. But I think that that's the tenor of what some people think of him. They just think of him as a guy that quits, the guy that doesn't play hard, and whatever else. I think it's a guy that's had just an unbelievable amount of bad luck, and you just have to wonder and look in the mirror and think, what did I do? That's where I am with that.
Yeah, and that's one of our questions today. Do you view Joel Embiid more as an unlucky figure or an under-delivering figure in his time here in Philadelphia? We'll check our poll question later on in the 7 o'clock hour. What else do we have on the text line there, Sean?
Yeah, some more people checking in here. Mike from Bristol saying, Embiid is done. This is the offseason to get rid of him. The Flyers, though, they still had, are still amazing, even though despite the Red Wings loss last night, still have a good, excited for the future, and Martone with another goal as well.
Yeah, I think you should still be excited about the Flyers. We brought that up at the end of the 6 o'clock hour.
Yeah.
Like, I'm interested where the fan base is at, because when you have something – when you're not emotionally invested over a long period of time, and let's be realistic, there are a lot of folks that were not emotionally invested in the Flyers for a long stretch because they did not give you a reason to be.
Which I get.
And when you just jump back in for like the stretch playoff run and you see a bad loss, well, it doesn't, you're not tied to the team the same way to say, oh, don't worry, like I'm going to stick through this because I know all the hard times I've gone through. It's just like, okay, if they're good, I follow. If they're not good, I don't. And it could be night to night. I'm glad to hear Mike from Bristol say that about the Flyers. Now on the Embiid thing, done with him and ready to move on. Can you really fault anybody at this point? I don't like how we've gotten here with the latest thing being the appendicitis, but if you're done with him, and the other thing that we have to accept is there are a lot of people in this fan base that were done with Joel Embiid before the appendicitis. Yeah. And if you're going to stay on that side today, I can't blame you. You just cannot use the appendicitis as the reasoning, as the final straw. That's where we'll draw the line, or at least I'll draw the line. I don't want to speak for you, Amy, but that can't be another reason why not to.
Yeah, to me, for people to have this be the nail in the coffin, something that's completely out of a player's control, is too strong. I can't get there. But I'm not going to disparage anybody. I'm saying like, oh, you're wrong for feeling that way. Your feelings are your feelings. Your perception is your reality. I'm always a big believer in that. How people want to look at things is something that's on them. We're just trying to say, while I understand it, I think that that's too strong of a reaction.
Yeah, exactly.
To say you're completely out on a guy, you're going to call him a loser, which is a very strong thing to say to a professional athlete who has given a lot to a team. And I know you'll have to say like, oh, but he didn't go to film session, or he didn't do this and he didn't do that. You also can go on the flip side, and there's numbers and statistics that'll back up the things that he did do. You should look at the number of eligible games that he played in the postseason and how many he missed. The guy's never been healthy for a postseason, and yet he's only missed a handful of games total out of like 60 possible playoff games. You're looking at single digits. I think that narrative gets overshadowed. So when you call him a loser, that's too strong for me. I do not view him in that regard. I think there's too many positives to take away. But it's the sting of what's the lack of production that's come at the end. Really, it's the results.
Yeah.
We're a results-driven basis here. That's how sports work. What championships, what have you won for me? And when you look at the end of the day, that's what a lot of people are going to go to with Joel Embiid. But calling him, that is such a strong word for an athlete. I can't use that ever.
There's a lot of gray area between winner and loser, right? I think back to the Ricky Bobby. I was drunk when I said that.
First,
third, fourth, even fifth.
You get all kinds of money.
There's a lot of room in there where there has to be nuance to this conversation. And Joel Embiid is one of the more nuanced athletes in Philadelphia sports history. But it's not just the Philadelphia Joel Embiids. It is the Philadelphia 76ers. And if he is done for the year we know he's going to miss a significant stretch of time. A couple of weeks here, which with the postseason this close, he may not play again for them this year. They could be done before he's healthy. So let's say in that world, he doesn't play. They get bounced either quickly in the first round or, God forbid, in the play-in games and don't even make it to the actual playoffs. And you get to that point in the offseason where it is another lost season for the Philadelphia 76ers. What is a realistic reaction organizationally when it comes to others? Where's your mind go first with that, Amy? Is it another player that you think they'll try and move on from? Is it the coach? Is it the president of basketball operations? What is the first domino to fall in reaction to another season? Or do they stick with their guns?
I mean, fiscally, I think they have to stick with certain things. I'm not going to put anything past what the front office will try to do as far as moving on from. When you're giving me my Fix It Friday, I think the length is what the Sixers need. You have to have that. You have to have long, rangy guards and wings that can shoot the three. That's what the NBA is right now. When you're watching the teams that are winning, they have the defensive strength, which is, I know there's a lot of people out there that are like, there's no defense in the NBA. Watch a couple of games, and you can see that there is defense in the NBA, and the teams that are winning are very good at it. The Pistons are very good at turning you over. The Spurs are very good at turning you over. The Rockets, they turn themselves over, but they also turn you over. But I go to the Pistons and the Spurs as two prime examples, and the Thunder as well. Those are their top teams. And you look at the length and the range that they shoot with three-pointers and the way that they guard on the wing and in the guard positions. So when I think about a fix for them realistically is you have to move on from one of your higher contracts, and it's not Tyrese Maxey. Don't ever trade him. That's Amy Fadul saying that. Please don't.
I'll double down on that.
Please don't trade him. But you need to move something. You have a little bit of assets after the Jared McCain trade. Then you have a real big problem with a $50+ million player that you're going to have to move on from. I don't see a future financially where you're going to win with not having more than one. You need to get two players for one.
Yeah.
I think you have to have two players for one.
Okay.
I'm not saying you needed to trade everyone. I'm not there, but there's two players in my mind that are like absolutely you do not move on from. I don't care what the deal is. It's Tyrese Maxey and VJ Edgecombe. You do not. VJ Edgecombe is everything you should want. He's a long, rangy guard. He can make the three. That's exactly who you want. You need much more of him. You need more of high-level Kelly Oubre types as well.
Yeah, so sticking with the higher-ups potentially, but changing the roster significantly would seem to be the safe middle ground for the Sixers. But I don't know how dramatic they're going to get. And we'll see how loud the fan base reaction. Today is a day of you got to be kidding me, kind of this solemn reaction to something nobody could have prevented. But trust me, as it goes along and as we get into the postseason, you start to see this team and see what they're able to accomplish or not. The fan base is going to get real loud again about who's able to stay and who has to go. So part of the Fix It Friday conversation, it is on the Sixers and what you would fix with them if you could, whether that's practical or emotionally. Now we're going to bring the Eagles into the conversation coming up next because I thought this topic of Fix It Friday it fit for three teams in this town. The Eagles I wasn't sure of. Do you look at the Eagles as a team that needs fixing? We'll dive into that coming up next. It's Kincade Salciunas here, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Now, on 97.5 The Fanatic Sports Update.
Not a good night for Philadelphia sports. I'm Sean Rodman, and Joel Embiid is out for the foreseeable future. The Sixers announced that Embiid had successful surgery in Houston yesterday for appendicitis. Nick Nurse spoke pregame on the shocking loss of Embiid.
We had like an unbelievable day as a team yesterday. I mean, we had a great practice and great film session, and we were getting up and down the court, and he was a part of all that. You know, that's what hits you a little bit in the stomach when you get that news.
To make the playoff push worse, the Sixers fell on the road in Houston, 113-102. Sixers are back in action tonight against the Pacers on the road. You can listen to the game right here on the Fanatic. Pre-game coverage begins at 6. The Flyers lost to the Red Wings last night, 6-3. They now sit 1 point above the Islanders in the final spot in the Metro Division. Flyers are back in action tomorrow night in Winnipeg. The Phillies are back in action tonight at home against the Diamondbacks. Jesus Luzardo scheduled to get the start for the Phils, and right-hander Michael Soroka for the Arizona Diamondbacks. First pitch is at 6:40. This update is brought to you by Cromer & Cross. Cromer & Cross garage floors done in just one day. Get 50% off installation right now. Call 1-800-NEW-FLOOR or visit CromerCross.com. I'm Sean Rodman on the home of the Sixers, Flyers, and Union, 97.5 The Fanatic and The Fanatic.
Online casino and sportsbook app. Live bet sports on the BetParks app. Play all your favorite casino games. There's always another way to win on the BetParks Online casino and sportsbook. Got to be 21 in Pennsylvania, Jersey, or Maryland. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Oh, what did we do in life to be Philadelphia sports fans, Amy Fadul? I don't know, but
We wronged the incorrect people.
I guess
They've been
so.
wronged, and now we're reaping what apparently, I don't know how we sowed this, though.
No.
We didn't sow this.
I don't remember
Obviously,
sowing this.
The karma is really come back twofold. Whatever it was, it's undeserved. It has not been an equal 1-for-1. Whatever the karma is, there's no way anybody in Philadelphia. We didn't sacrifice the Sixers this much for the Eagles.
No, couldn't have.
That's not a correlation.
Couldn't have. Would I do it? Super Bowls are nice, but I would prefer not to have my basketball team in constant disarray.
I'll go ahead and sacrifice a good postseason run for a healthy appendix.
Yeah, I would do that as well. And that's something we're going to get into here with the Eagles. By the way, I'm Connor Thomas in for Andrew Salciunas. John Kincade also on vacation just today. So Amy Fadul in for John Kincade. Sean Rodman on the board. And we have been talking about the big news that broke yesterday with Joel Embiid going to the hospital with appendicitis. He is done for the regular season, most likely the play-in. Most likely part of what would be a first-round series or maybe a full first-round series. There's a good chance that the 76ers season will end before Joel Embiid is again available to play basketball. So we've been talking about that throughout the day and how it opens up the conversation about how you view his time here in Philadelphia. This is not his fault, so it plays to the unlucky part of it. But for all of the luck that has failed him, there have been other things where he has had moments where he's failed, and you have to tell the whole story. How do you balance that? It also opens up what we're calling a Fix It Friday here
Friday
on Kincade and Salciunas, where there are problems with all of our teams. Now, some less than others. And perspective is something that I always try and have. It's nice for me because I'm part of a split household. My mom and brother are Vikings fans. And watching what happens to the Minnesota sports, like they've never seen one of their teams. My brother is 30. And he's never seen a team of his play for a championship. And with that in mind, it could always be worse. So I don't want this to be, we've seen Super Bowls, we've seen a World Series, we've seen 2001, the team play for an NBA Finals, we've seen the Flyers go to a cup in my lifetime. So it's not the worst possible scenario. But as we sit here today on April 10th, there are things that need to be fixed in this city. And whether you have a realistic or emotional solution, we want to open up the floor for you to be able to share those thoughts with us at 610-632-0975. You can call in, you can text in, you can send us voice memos on the Davis Honda text line, and you can also react to that Joel Embiid news. But let's bring the Eagles in because I don't want this to just be a Sixers conversation today. They're the one team that doesn't really seem to fit in this theme of the show when I was thinking about it last night. Because I don't know how much they need to be fixed.
Yeah, like I think when you think about something that needs to be fixed, that implies that it's obviously broken.
Exactly.
Are the Eagles broken? No. Do they maybe need some patches?
Yeah.
Right, like a little bit of like you look over at
Flex Seal here
at that, like maybe like a repainting or like kind of like you sand out that one spot and fix it up a little bit. So I think it's more of a fix it up rather than a full-on fix. I think that there's some blemishes that you probably need to address. That's how I would look at the Eagles.
That being said, there were points this past season.
Oh, there were some fixes that you.
Where I was thinking burn it down,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying change the roster, but there's a lot of stuff that would have been considered broken in the moment. Now, part of that is the emotion of actually watching a Kevin Patullo offense week in and week out. And how much does the head coach play into that? We had the Jalen Hurts article that came out that Tim McManus and Jeremy Fowler did a great job working on about where that relationship is at. We have the ongoing A.J. Brown saga, whether or not the star wide receiver will be traded post June 1st. And the draft is very important. The draft just a couple of weeks away. They're going to have to start finding whether it's replacements for guys that could retire soon, or it could be a replacement for a guy that could be traded soon in A.J. Brown. There's a lot of work for the Eagles to do. I don't know that I'd say they need to be fixed, but to what level do they need things shored up a little bit? There was a really interesting clip that we want to use to set this up. Bill Barnwell was talking about the Eagles on NFL Live. It was him and Mina Kimes. I don't know if I believe this, and I'm not sure if this is being overstated just from a national perspective, but do the Eagles need a fix to their culture?
Well, in addition to my primary job as a fake trade expert, my side job is doctor. And as a doctor of psychology for the Philadelphia Eagles, they need a culture change. Bringing in Max Crosby to that building, to that room where everybody was mad and angry and upset last year, I feel like is the logical place to go. It's a risk, no question, but it's the kind of risk Howie Roseman likes to take. I think by November, Max Crosby and Big Dom are going to be hosting a podcast together.
Oh, wow. I love the humor in it.
Yeah.
I get where you're going. Now, Max Crosby being on this team, that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
If you trust that he's going to be healthy enough to contribute, that's a very talented player. But as far as a culture change is concerned, they don't strike me as a team where the culture is in a bad spot.
I get what he's saying, though, because the culture, the swag, the level of kind of like intensity that a Max Crosby would bring to any locker room is something that the Eagles have been missing at times. I go back to when you had guys like Darius Slay and CJ certainly in that secondary. CJ made the secondary much better. Reed Blankenship played much better when you had CJ back there, just because those are two kind of the yin and the yang. One's a finesse guy, one's like I'm going to get up and punch you in the mouth type of player. So they really complemented each other in that regard. And then I think you saw a little bit of a drop down in production with Reed Blankenship after CJ left. But whether you like it or not, there is a certain amount of kind of swagger, dog in them, whatever you want to call it, when you have certain types of players in the locker room. I think especially on the defensive side of the ball. Darius Slay is a guy that I point to. And there was a reason that he was voted a captain for the first time in his entire NFL career. I think the Eagles looked to him as a tone setter, a guy that could really kind of dictate certain culture in the locker room. I think you have that with Jalen Hurts on the one side, but I think sometimes you're lacking it. I think that was a big reason to bring back Brandon Graham, is to have a better culture in there. You lost some of that when some of the older guys start retiring, BG being one of them, obviously Jason Kelsey, and different players like that. So you're thinking about what did you lose? What is a difference from a couple of years ago to this year? So a culture change, I don't know, but I think maybe an enhancer is one of the things that I would point to. And I think when you're talking about, like in listening to that clip, when you're talking about a Max Crosby, he is a guy that certainly would enhance certain aspects.
Yeah, now I'm not at the point because I think they need too much depth-wise and maybe even starter-wise. I don't think they're going to make that trade for Max Crosby.
It would cost too much.
Yeah, and for the questions that exist out there, you can blame the Ravens all you want because I think it was dirty pool how they went about it.
Yeah.
The fact that they were backing out of that trade because of the medicals, I'm not lining up to trade very premium assets for Max Crosby right now. But culture is a question for the Philadelphia Eagles. The reason that door has been opened is because of what the offseason conversation has been. We've questioned the head coach for years. Nick Sirianni, how he handles this team, whether or not we trust him, just the general way he goes about his business. He's successful, but a lot of folks in this town don't like the way that he goes about being successful. It just doesn't feel like he's on the most solid ground compared to where his resume should put him.
That's not just here in Philadelphia. You look at the seasons that he's put together, always in the playoffs, winning the Super Bowls, being at the Super Bowls. There's a reason, I would think, and it's always been confounding to me, why the outside viewership and people that are in the know, they never have him in the Coach of the Year conversation. Think about it.
Yeah.
There's no other coach that's done what he's done, made the playoffs, been in Super Bowls, that's never been in, he's not even in the top 5 sometimes in the conversation of Coach of the Year candidates. Why not? Is there something that everybody else is seeing that so when people badmouth the Philadelphia fan base and think like, oh, they don't know how good it is, that's not just the Philadelphia fan base. There's people on the outside that do not view him as highly as probably people should. He's never been in that. How is that possible?
I don't know.
He's not been a finalist the years that they win the Super Bowl. What are we doing here?
It's so funny because he is not the only one. There is another guy that shares that exact same evaluation, and that is the quarterback in Jalen Hurts, where it's the undeniable resume. The talent is some point you can't miss it. The guy is a winner, and he has the ability to play football at a high level. He's done it on the biggest stage. and yet the quarterback lists come out, and he doesn't get the love either. So I wonder, when people look at this football team right now, are there fixes that you need to see? Because my answer to that at the end of the season would have been yes. But today, as we sit here after the offensive coaching staff has been filled out, sure, there's things they need roster-wise. I'd like to see them add at safety. I'd like to see them add at edge. You have to add depth on the offensive line. You may need a wide receiver. But if there are fixes for the Eagles that I would have wanted to see, it's you got to figure out how this offense works. You've got to implement, whether it's a new scheme or perfecting the old scheme. And they've brought in the guys that are believed to be able to do that in Sean Mannion, and you've got Chris Cooper on the offensive line front, and all of this stuff that you did offensively to retool that. You're not changing that now.
Yeah,
so
I think fix it implies large holes of real doubt and questions instead of like, well, it'd be really nice if they had this, but I feel okay if they don't.
let's see what the people have to say on that. If you want to chime in on the Eagles, are they a team that needs to be fixed on this Fix It Friday, or are they good where they're at? Good relatively. Everyone's got things to improve on, but they're about as ironclad as it gets in this city. Coming up next, we've got today's headlines with Sean Rodman. Hopefully he's got some happy stuff for us because we
need it.
Yeah, it's been one of those days.
There's a little bit of both, I would say.
Bring that sunshine there, Sean.
And a good laughter in there as well.
Oh, okay.
We need the
something
laughter.
that'll upset you, something to make you to laugh a little bit as well.
There's a good tease right there. We'll also check in on the poll. We got a lot of stuff going on here on Kincade Salciunas, 97.5, The Fanatic.
Kincade Salciunas, 97.5 The Fanatic and the Fanatic app.
All right, we got today's headlines coming your way in just a second, but let's check in on the Dr. Avidan Appel Twitter poll asking a question about Joel Embiid. It is a tough one today because you cannot blame Joel Embiid for the appendicitis. If you're doing this, you're nuts to put this in any way on him, right? Like, do a little bit of research on what appendicitis is. It's not diet related. It's not anything. It's not, oh, well, he played in the game and he plays any way in a basketball game could do it. No, this is just a freak thing that happens, and I guess really only in this circumstance, this close to the postseason.
Only does it happen to the Sixers. Only does it happen to Joel Embiid. That's how I think everybody felt when you saw the news. Like, of course, you just rolled your eyes and thought, if there was anything that was going to happen, you couldn't have predicted this particular thing. But you probably really push comes to shove. You could have been like, well, it's probably something going to happen. The shoe's going to fall.
Yeah, but this is one piece of a 1,000-piece puzzle. Like, I had this thought the other day about the other shoe dropping, and we always wait for it with the Sixers and specifically with Joel Embiid. This is like you're really, like, terrified of bugs, and you see, like, a roach in your house, and the other shoe is just stomping over and over and over again.
Any of those options.
There's no other shoe dropping. The other shoe is constantly just stomping on the heads of Philadelphia 76ers fans, it feels like. So while the Embiid thing in the moment, he cannot be blamed for, there's a lot more to this story. So let's take a look at our Twitter poll today. Sean, what's our question and the current results?
Our question today is, what word best describes Joel Embiid's playing career in Philadelphia? 2 words, unlucky and under-delivering. Unlucky right now at 53% to 47%. So neck and neck.
It is close. And I expected it to be pretty close.
I think a lot of people correlate the two, right? I think he's under-delivered because he's been unlucky. So for them, if they're going to maybe choose one, they might go that route. But they're obviously related. And we talked about it a minute ago. The answer is yes. It's both.
Yeah.
But you have to choose from. If you have to choose one, I definitely lean more unlucky, because I think that there's been more cases of not him being just in the wrong place at the wrong time, or things like freak things happening rather than putting himself in those situations. I lean more towards that, but I can totally understand why people would be like, oh yeah, no, it's just because he's never been available, and I blame the majority of that on him.
Yeah, I don't want to sound like I
can't get there.
No, I don't want to sound like the how dare you be mean to JoJo guy today. But I just don't want the fan base to be in a place like I would feel disappointed in Sixers fans if the overwhelming opinion on him was this guy didn't get it done. This guy left us in the lurch. He did not put forth the effort needed or anything like that. Like, is part of that the story for points of his career? Absolutely. Is that the overwhelming opinion? I don't think it should be. So I'm glad that poll is showing that we have balance, at least in the fan base today. Now, maybe that's just because we're very close to a situation that just occurred yesterday with the appendicitis that he could not control. And maybe that feeling will shift back the further away we get from this. But I think there's a complicated nature to this, and I appreciate that the fans are seeing that as well. But sometimes you just gotta turn away from it for a second, because there's only so much of this painful everything goes wrong with this darn team that you can take. And that's why it's great to have today's headlines for a little break. So here is Sean Rodman.
Today's headlines with Sean, no relation to Dennis Rodman.
All right, today's headlines is brought to you by Lundy Law. For over 70 years, Lundy Law's been fighting for injured people. If you need them, remember the name Lundy Law, your injury lawyers. Visit LundyLaw.com. That's LundyLaw.com. All right, I know I said that there's going to be some little lighthearted stuff, but let's start with something that may annoy some Philadelphia sports fans. And the Chiefs defensive lineman Charles Omenihu was on Speakeasy last night with Emmanuel Acho. I don't know if you saw this, but he compared the Eagles Super Bowl winning team that beat his Chiefs team to the Chiefs opponent the year prior, the 49ers, when the Chiefs won the Super Bowl.
They played the 49ers the year before, who had Ayuk, who had Debo, who had Christian McCaffrey, who had Fred Warner, who had George Kittle.
That 49ers Super Bowl team was better than that Eagles team.
Whoa.
You got to see, Charles, if you say that and that gets clipped, Charles, they're going to be tweeting at you for the next 2 years.
Yeah, they are.
Guess what? They saw it, it got clipped, and we're going to tweet at you. How dumb can you be? This is great, Sean. I don't care. I'll be mad at people outside of Philadelphia all day long. You are an idiot, sir, all due respect. You got your ass whooped. Belt 2 in that Super Bowl by one of the great teams in NFL history. They were shutting you out. And you're telling me a team that you guys beat was the better team?
Did you see Darius Slay's response?
I did not.
No, I didn't either.
Quote, "Yeah, buddy, tripping. Y'all ain't stand a chance. How you going to talk like that? We took the starters out. Could have put 50 on you."
Kenny Pickett took the final snaps in that game.
Could have put 50 on you.
They probably could have put 70 on him that night.
They took the starters out. For him to come out and be like, "Oh, you don't understand. We had him right where we wanted him." The starters weren't playing. Kenny Pickett, tiny hands, Kenny Pickett played. That's amazing. Good for you.
We talk about the anyone could get it night of the NFC Championship game back in 2017, 2018. Like, we say anyone could. They won that game 38-7. It was a bigger blowout in the Super Bowl.
It wasn't even that close.
That's the most asinine comment. And say whatever you want to believe there. Nobody in Philadelphia is going to let you off the hook.
I just like how they immediately acknowledge that's going to be clipped and everyone's going to come at you. Yeah.
You got what you wanted,
That's
buddy.
how I saw it. I didn't see it from anything else. I saw Darius Slay responding to it. That's when I first saw it.
I'm glad Slay's
He was
still
like,
stepping
"You
up."
guys, stop it."
What else do we have, Sean?
Well, something else that was trending yesterday on Twitter. I don't know if I know both of you golf fans. The Masters has started. And there's always honorary starters, including one, Jack Nicklaus. And Jack Nicklaus, I don't know if you saw his honorary drive off the first tee, but he hit it towards the crowd on the left-hand side, and he had a little response afterwards to the press.
You know, I don't really play golf anymore, so it's but it's such a nice ceremony. It's a real honor to be invited. I hope to be able to do it as long as I can not kill anybody.
I appreciate that from Jack.
He did also mention he had surgery a couple weeks prior. So
The fact that he's out there still, like he said,
86 years old.
I don't play golf that much anymore. He just recently obviously had that surgery. He could knock down. I would consider it an honor if I got hit by a golf ball on the honorary first tee at Augusta. For one, because I would have been at Augusta, which would have been amazing.
That'd be great.
If Jack hit me with a golf ball, I'd be like, no, thank you, sir.
It depends where it hits me, but I largely agree with you there, and you can't blame the guy. It is a cool tradition that they have. We're going to talk a little bit about the Masters in the 9 o'clock hour. Just a quick check-in, because I know a lot of people are interested in the ongoings at Augusta. Rory off to a hot start. What else do we have, Sean?
All right, lastly, I wanted to save the good news for last for everybody, and it involves the Phillies. Phillies' first-round pick last year, Gage Wood, had his second outing in the minor leagues with the Clearwater Threshers. He went 3 1/3 innings with 8 strikeouts, and that included 16 swing and misses as well for him yesterday.
He's awesome. If you don't remember, he's the guy who threw the no-hitter in the College World Series for Arkansas. And a lot of people think because he was an older player when drafted that he could have a quick path to the major leagues. Now, he should be a starter because clearly he has the ability to go deep. He could come up as a reliever if you need help in the bullpen this year. But this is why when people look at the future of the Phillies rotation, I'm not as worried as other people because you do have options, him being the biggest one as a young option. Luzardo is not old. Sanchez is not old. And while people get so caught up in like the potential Wheeler retirement that's coming soon and Aaron Nola on a long-term contract being an older player, the rotation's going to be all right, and he's a bright spot.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of question when they initially took him. They thought, well, was this lightning in a bottle? Because some people might have only been familiar with that one game or that one College World Series. He had a tremendous career at Arkansas in a very high-level situation. So I think that him being an older for the draft player is actually helpful, and it works on the Phillies side.
Yeah, he's a guy that you're going to either see in the Phillies or
the next couple,
on the Phillies maybe this year, depending on how things
I would
shake
think
out.
within the next year or so.
Yeah, or he is a guy that could also be moved because he's very close to the majors. And if the Phillies are aggressive at the deadline,
yeah, maybe
with everything on the table. But Gage Wood, this will not be the last you hear of him. He'll be in the news very quickly. So great stuff.
Good stuff.
There's good things in Philadelphia sports. Thank you, Shawnee, for bringing that up.
Yeah,
that's today's headlines.
A bright spot.
Now we're back to the Sixers coming up to start the 8 o'clock hour. The word that I saw more than anything else yesterday that I can actually say on air and not get fined for was cursed. I can't believe we're actually having a legitimate conversation about curses, but we have to. We'll do it coming up next here on Kincade Salciunas, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Now on 97.5 The Fanatic Sports Update.
Joel Embiid out indefinitely. I'm Sean Rodman, and the Sixers announced that Joel Embiid had successful surgery in Houston for his appendicitis. Tony Jones of The Athletic joined Unfiltered yesterday and told us how long we should expect Embiid to be out for.
Well, he's definitely out for the remainder of the regular season. I don't see any scenario where he plays this weekend. Usually for a surgery like that, you're supposed to not do anything physical for 10 to 14 days. You're looking at a timeline, conservatively, maybe 3 weeks.
To make the playoff push worse, the Sixers fell on the road last night to the Houston Rockets 113-102. They're back in action tonight on the road at the Pacers. You can listen to the game right here on The Fanatic. Pre-game coverage begins at 6. The Flyers lost the Red Wings last night 6-3. They now sit 1 point above the Islanders for the final spot in the Metro after the Islanders win last night. The Flyers are back in action tomorrow night in Winnipeg, and the Phillies are back in action at home tonight against the Diamondbacks. Jesus Luzardo is scheduled to start for the Phillies, and right-hander Michael Soroka for the Arizona Diamondbacks. First pitch is at 6:40. Your chance to win $1,000 coming up in just a few minutes as well. Stay tuned. And this update is brought to you by Mothers Against Drunk Driving. For victims of drunk and drug driving, your grief is unique, but you are not alone. You always have a place at MADD. Call the 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MADD-HELP or visit MADD.org. I'm Sean Rodman on the home of the 76ers, Flyers, and Union, 97.5 The Fanatic and The Fanatic.
It's time for Fanatic Parlay Cash.
Yes, it is. Your chance to win $1,000 right now. Fanatic Parlay Cash. The contest keyword is bonus. That's BONUS, bonus. You have until 25 minutes after the hour to enter it on the Fanatic app or at 975thefanatic.com, or you can text it. The special contest short code 45911. One random entry wins $1,000 in this company-wide contest. Winners will get a call from Beasley, so be sure to answer your phone. Contest rules at 975thefanatic.com. Fanatic Parlay Cash is stood up by Iron Mountain Men's Health. 5 chances to win each weekday. Your next one comes your way at 10. Then you got noon, 3, and 5 p.m. Again, the key word is bonus. Good luck.
If you want to see their wonderful faces, check out youtube.com/975thefanatic Philadelphia. More of Kincade and Salciunas coming your way now.
Oh, yep. More of, 0 for 2 on the whole Kincade and Salciunas part. I'm Connor Thomas in for Andrew Salciunas. Amy Fadul to my left, sitting in for John Kincade. Both of the guys on vacation. I must have gotten left off the Fridays off list. But that's okay because I don't know if anyone out there noticed. We have a bit of a big story we've been talking about today.
Is that right?
Yeah. Joel Embiid just wakes up with his pain in his side, goes to the hospital, appendicitis.
No, wakes up at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Well, hey, some of us do that every day. But
Joel
but
Embiid
not in that state.
Normal humans
Yeah, I
do
know.
not.
I know. Not in that state either. That has got to be an awful feeling to have that be the way. By the way, on the morning of the biggest basketball game of the year so far for your team, where a lot of people were questioning illness. And just to give full story of how yesterday went, the first information we get is that Joel Embiid is out with an illness.
Yeah, it was like 2 o'clock, comes out. He's out with an illness, or 1:45, whatever time it was. It was in the afternoon.
And a lot of people lost
Earlier
it.
than that. It was like because we had the people that reacted initially, and everyone did, because you had the previous result of the Wizards game where he was ruled out for an illness. He had been sick during the Heat game. He thought he was okay. He needed sleep. He didn't sleep well, so he slept in, missed the shoot around, and therefore he didn't play in that game, which was April Fool's Day, because he said, I'm fine. He just needed extra rest and whatever else. And I don't know what communication did or did not happen. I'm not going to go down and relitigate that. But we saw illness listed out, and then you saw all the impact after that. Like, I thought I could play and whatever else, and you're thinking, I'm sorry, didn't we just do this? That's literally what your first thought was. Like, didn't we just do this? Didn't this just happen? Didn't I already see this earlier in the week? And so that was the knee-jerk reaction. And it was honestly, you got an understandable one at that point.
It was valid, yeah. I get it.
I get it.
John Marks took him to task on Middays. The guys on Unfiltered took him to task. And then the news comes out that it's appendicitis. And I can't fault anyone who went after Joel Embiid for the illness when it was reported like that. And immediately, everybody, rightfully so, backtracks all opinions once you see it's the appendicitis in the hospital. Like, there's nothing you can do at that point. And that is the perfect encapsulation of the Joel Embiid story. Immediately, he does not have the leeway with the fan base because of the time he has missed, the availability issues, the injury-prone nature of his time here in Philadelphia. And then it turns into also, this guy's just incredibly unlucky, and this is one of those instances where there's nothing that he could have done. So I don't fault anybody for their initial reaction, and I have not seen anybody, I don't know if you have, Amy, fans or otherwise, that are, blaming him for the appendicitis in and of itself. There are folks that are saying, hey, I've been done with this guy because of his inability to be on the court as much as we need him to be. And this is just another point of reference to say, hey, I'm kind of tired of this. But I haven't seen anybody saying, oh, this is on Joel. This can't happen.
He can't let appendicitis happen to him.
Yeah.
I don't know. If you feel like he caused appendicitis, you might need to go outside and touch some grass. That's just not a realistic response. And I have not seen that. I have not heard that. I've not encountered that, whether it's been on social media or otherwise. So that's obviously a normal reaction, is to be like, this is an unlucky thing, the unluckiest of things, to be honest, because the timing of it, we were just talking about the 3 games to go. It was the morning of the biggest game. They had just been at practice 15 hours prior, having a great practice, having a great film session, everybody high energy, running up and down the court, Joel Embiid included. That's the quote from Nick Nurse pregame yesterday before the Rockets game. And then to say the floor must have dropped out from under that coaching staff when they realized they just had a wonderful practice, a great high-energy practice on the biggest game of the year, and to get a call in the morning or whatever that was delivered via phone call or a text message or whatever, you get the notice that at 3 o'clock in the morning your star center was taken to the hospital because he was having appendix pain and is going to have an emergency appendectomy. there's just no other words for it besides like, you have to be kidding me.
But is this,
be kidding me.
You said the unluckiest thing. I don't even know that that's the case, because we saw just a couple years ago, he gets kept in a game against the Toronto Raptors that the Sixers had in hand. Face gets hit on Pascal Siakam's shoulder.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, that's in the middle of a playoff series. We've seen players fall on his knee in just a weird freak injury that leads to him missing time. And it's not just Joel Embiid. It's all kinds of stuff with this organization where you have an allergic reaction that cost you basically a full season of a first-round pick, who, by the way, you traded a guy whose mother worked for the organization at this time.
He was also a very high-level player that was traded again later in his NBA career, not much later, for 5 first-round picks.
That Mikal Bridges thing, man. And that's
Think he's a valuable piece with the Knicks? You think that he's helpful?
So. Yeah, I think he'd be a guy we'd love to have here in this city.
Got some length on him. Could hit a 3.
That's another one. It's just you made a bad move there to trade Mikal Bridges for Zaire Smith.
It's the repercussions of that, right? A lot of times you'll make trades and they don't work out, and you're thinking, oh, what could have happened or whatever. But there was nothing. What you got in return was an unfortunate situation.
But it couldn't just be that Zaire Smith was not good at basketball.
It was an anaphylactic shock.
It had to be
reaction or whatever.
Yeah, the allergic reaction and everything that happened with that just you don't hear these stories anywhere else. So yesterday, the number one word that I saw in reaction to this, whether this is somewhere you have just gotten, I know, Amy, you've been saying you haven't been on the idea of cursed for a long time, but it feels like you got to get there.
I might be getting there now.
Cursed is the word for the Philadelphia 76ers. It's tough, though, because we're supposed to try and break down sports. And I like to live in a world where stuff is explainable. You look at a team and you say they're doing this, that, or the other thing during the game. They either don't have good enough players, they don't have a good enough scheme, the coaching isn't where it needs to be. I need stuff to be explainable. Mm-hmm. And that's what I like about sports, because you can break it down, and we do a 4-hour show every morning, 6 to 10.
That's why it's a statistics-based situation.
Exactly.
It's numbers-based.
But now we have to open up the door of the conversation where a lot of folks in the fan base are at today, and where some have been at for a while, where it's just, what do you do when you look at a franchise that you consider to be cursed? They're not the first sports franchise. Curses have been a thing in sports that people have talked about for generations.
Babe Ruth, the GOAT, there's all kinds of stuff. The Billy Goat. There's different things about stadiums that were placed in the wrong spots.
Even here, Billy Penn.
Yes.
Like when they
got to make them higher than everybody else.
Yeah, you build a building taller, and then the next thing you know,
move
we'll
them
never
on
win
up.
Again. There are curses. This is not a new thing in sports, but it's not a analytical thing. It's not a statistical thing. So it's a tough conversation to have. In some ways, I do feel like when I say the Sixers are a cursed organization, I am letting them in some ways off the hook, because there have been decisions made by this team, whether it's roster-wise or whether it's hiring of coaches and executives, that in this time, post-process, has led to bad situations. So I don't want it to just be like, oh, there's nothing they could have done. This is all on just the powers that be, the sports gods. But you also see everything that's happened outside of the norm with this organization, and it has to be part of the conversation.
Yeah, we were just talking about it. You took a player, Markelle Fultz, shot just fine in college. Thoracic outlet syndrome, never got a shot back, ever. You took a player in Ben Simmons, high level, all-star, all-defensive type of player. Stopped playing basketball. No longer was interested in basketball. That's 2 number 1 overall picks. That's just those are just 2 examples. And then you're going forward with different trades that didn't work out. You mentioned Zaire Smith, the general manager situation with the Colangelo and that whole. I don't even know what to call that. Do I call it like Collargate? Whatever it is, Twittergate,
Burnergate. It's been called a bunch of different things.
That alone is going to be the longest 60 for 60 to ever be. That's a 5-part series. But you just have so many different things that when you look at it all encompassing, and I've never been like the tinfoil hat type, but when I saw the appendicitis with 3 games to go on the morning of the biggest game of the year that you had to win in order to get that 6th seed. You had to win it because of the way that the schedule is going to shake out for the other teams around you. You had to beat the Raptors or at least tie them. And the Raptors playing the Heat, and the Raptors are playing the Nets, and you're thinking, you got to get the win. I just thought, I might have to break out the tinfoil hat. I never believed in that kind of stuff. I just thought there's just no way. There's always happenstance and things that, bad luck. But the way, the all-encompassing of just like, you can't make it up. You can't make it up.
There was a point where I was sitting at home on the couch, and I had the Flyers on the TV and the Sixers on the laptop, and I was sitting there, and I was thinking, how difficult would it be to find like a witch doctor or someone who does voodoo to contact today to legitimately come on the show to talk about how we could reverse curses? Like, this has become such a thing in my mind. Here's the weird thing. It is a very fan-centric conversation.
Right.
Like, if you talk to teams, if you had talked to Cubs teams during that curse or Red Sox teams during their curse, and you had asked the players or the manager, they would talk about the team they have and the baseball they're playing and what happens actually on the field of play. You don't see it bought into very much by the actual organization.
Right. When the Red Sox are dealing with their curse for, years and years and years and years, decades.
Yeah.
They weren't sitting there. The players were not talking about, remember the time they traded Babe Ruth and cursed our entire franchise for 100 years? They didn't talk about that. It was kind of like said in passing. But if you didn't think they weren't talking about it constantly in the fan base on Sports Talk Radio, you never were in Boston, because it was an overarching theme for every time they lost in an epic way in the postseason.
That's why it's really interesting to hear this next clip from me, because they, of course, were talking on NBA Today about the Joel Embiid news. It was the biggest news in basketball and one of the biggest stories in sports yesterday. So Tim McMahon and Kendrick Perkins were discussing the Embiid stuff. And normally, those are guys you hear break down the numbers, the way guys play, the statistics of basketball. And they got into the conversation about unlucky and how it applies to Joel Embiid.
I mean, and listen, obviously you wonder if when's he going to be able to get back on the floor, if Philadelphia is going to be able to get into the playoffs. I don't know all that. I'm not a doctor despite 8 years in college. I can diagnose Embiid, though, as the unluckiest superstar of this generation. The guy's had Bell's palsy. He's had all kinds of injuries, and it's always at this time of year.
I was just about to say that, Tim. It seemed like he's cursed, and it's unfortunate. Joel Embiid is one of the most talented big men this game has ever seen, and it's a disappointment, really, because you want to see him play at this level. He's been playing on this stage. He's been playing at a high level. I just hope that he's able to get healthy. The Sixers get into the postseason, and he comes back.
Yeah, we're all hoping that too, Perk, but that's not something that is realistic right now.
I don't know how many times I've ever agreed with Kendrick Perkins.
Yeah.
But, I think he's right. It's hard not to, when you look at everything, and they said at the beginning of that clip, they were talking about it's this time of year, and it has been. It seemingly has been this time of year, but it's all times. But I counted it up because I just pulled it up on Basketball Reference. 68 postseason games that Joel Embiid has played in or has been eligible for, right, 2018 through 2024. He's missed 9 of them.
Yeah, that's not a substantial amount.
When you think about it, he's obviously – and he's been injured for all of those. He's never had a healthy postseason. I think people can look at the bubble. I don't know. I mean, it's just kind of like a one-off. That was kind of a weird time. He didn't have any, notable injuries, but there's always been something notable that he's been injured for the playoffs, and he's only missed 9 of the 68 games. So I think that there is something to be said for that, to play in 59 of the games of your 68. But there's always been something. So when you think about the luck, the Bell's palsy is just one of those things. The lasting image from that is him at the free throw line with one eye closed. Still made it, by the way.
Yeah.
Which is whatever, remarkably crazy. But there is the overarching of this. There's got to be some kind of other answer. And if the answer isn't that he's doing something to himself, because you can't do anything to yourself to cause any of these things when you're looking at appendicitis or Bell's palsy or whatever, it's there's obviously a curse on the franchise.
Yeah.
I never thought I would be the tinfoil hat person, but I'm getting the aluminum foil hat now.
So my question out there as we continue our Fix It Friday, and part of what we're doing here on Fix It Friday, it's not just the Sixers, but if you have solutions to fix the problems we're currently facing with our Philadelphia sports teams, realistically, or maybe they're more emotional responses to what we're dealing with, we'd love to hear from you on the Davis Honda text line at 610-632-0975 or the phone line. You can also send voice memos. When we say the more emotional stuff, I want to open up that conversation about a cursed franchise. Other fan bases have felt this before in the past. We brought up Chicago with the Cubs. We brought up Boston with the Red Sox. So we are not the first. If you're waking up and saying this team is cursed, I don't want you to feel silly for that. It's this nebulous feeling that doesn't exist in the world of science and statistics, but other fan bases have gone through this. So my question, and maybe I'm looking for help here, is if you're a fan that says this is a cursed organization,
how do we break the curse?
What do we do?
What do we do?
Hey,
what did the other teams do? What did the Red Sox do? Besides pay like a bunch of people, what did the Cubs do? I'm trying to think of other teams that you have like notable curses for that had this long sustained kind of like bad luck situations. What did they do? Because we need to know. This is strictly for research purposes only. We need to know some options that we can work through. Because realistically, there's something else that's at play here. This is not just bad luck. There's something happening, and I don't know. Is this a poltergeist situation?
Do we need to sage the building? Like, what exactly?
I'm fine with that.
I'm open to everything.
Why not try everything?
Yeah,
sage the building, get a priest, do an exorcism. Let's do it all.
We had a coach one time in college baseball, and we'll check the text line here in a second. When I was playing college ball, we went on a bad stretch. Like, couldn't hit, couldn't pitch, couldn't field, everything. And we were in conference, and he bought chicken nuggets from McDonald's before the game. We sacrificed chicken nuggets in left field. And I think
is this like a Joe Boo situation? We couldn't get the chicken, so we found the bucket of chicken.
I think we lost like 10-2 that game. So not everything's gonna work. we looked like idiots because we're sacrificing McNuggets, and then we got our teeth.
It's so
kicked
funny
in.
because, like, I in one breath I'm saying that I don't believe in conspiracy theories and curses, and then I'm also the type of person that if my team is winning and I'm watching on a certain device or television, I'm not changing a single thing. Whatever has happened, that is what's happening now. And then if they start to go awry, then I will think about changing something. I do get very superstitious, and I'm called out on it all the time because I'll watch like my team on a tiny little television, and they're like, I don't care. They're winning when I'm watching right here. Like, that doesn't affect it. No, you don't know what you are talking about. I am affecting the game. So I definitely still have that, and I know it's irrational, but I can't not do it.
Yeah.
I know it's irrational.
I'm so
but
with
I can't
you.
not do it.
I almost broke up with a college girlfriend over an Eagles superstition. That's a story for another day. So I'm with you, though. Like, you do
I feel like that's a story for, like, a soon day.
No, maybe we'll talk about that later on here. But I want to hear what the people are saying on the Davis Honda text line. Sean, what do we have there?
All right, well, let's stick to the curse theme. And Jeff from D.C. saying that we legit sacrificed the Sixers to the sports gods for 2 Eagles Super Bowls. That's the only explanation.
Now, why is that we go that way? Because, Amy, I know we feel the same way.
Because there's no other explanation for it.
Yeah.
We're grasping at straws. Like, what is something good? Because I say it too often. We can't have nice things here in Philadelphia. You can't have nice things. And because we had nice things, 2 of them, you wonder what was the payoff. There's always that idea in the cosmic atmosphere of the yin and the yang, the good with the bad, right? So what was the good thing that created so much bad? What is the opposite of the pull and the push? And the good thing is 2 Super Bowls. And something that had never happened here.
But logically.
No.
No. I have to try
logic.
I have to do some logic.
Feeling.
I look at what goes on in Boston. And they've been on a run where they just can't stop winning.
It's playoffs all the time.
I get it, and they've had plenty of good.
You wonder, and that was one of the overarching themes of like when people are like, "Why you guys don't still hate the Patriots, right? In Philadelphia, you don't still hate them." I don't think about them the same way as when Tom Brady is not there. But my thought was like, you just were there.
Yeah, I was rooting heavily against them.
You just were there. You need to have more downtime.
Yeah, but that's a city that has had a lot of good, and they continue to have a lot of good. So it's possible to continue to just win and have it not have these like cursed implications for another franchise or for that team in the future. So logically, it shouldn't have to be that way. But why in Philadelphia does it feel like it always is? If there's a big game, like if the Phils are playing at 7 and the Sixers have a playoff game at 8, I hope the Phils give up 15 in the first inning so that I can believe that the Sixers are going to have a good night.
Because you think you need to have the yin and the yang. You know we're not allowed to have more than one nice thing.
Yeah, but it doesn't. Can't we have 2?
Nope.
Maybe even 3?
You got 2 Super Bowls. Look what happened.
I want more, though, Amy.
Yeah, well.
We'll see what the people have to say about the cursed part of the conversation because it's very fandom-centric. I also want to bring the Phillies into the talk. They did not play yesterday, so that's another day of them not scoring a run. But they did not lose. Phix is with the Phillies. We talked about it a little on yesterday's show. I want to talk about that more. And Scott Lauber had something interesting to say when he joined us yesterday about potential fixes to the lineup on this Fix It Friday here on Kincade and Salciunas.
Now on 97.5 The Fanatic Sports Update.
Cursed, unlucky, bad. Well, it was a bad night for Philadelphia sports. I'm Sean Rodman, and Joel Embiid is out for the foreseeable future. The Sixers announced that Joel Embiid had successful surgery in Houston for appendicitis. Nick Nurse spoke pregame on the shocking loss of Embiid.
We had like an unbelievable day as a team yesterday. I mean, we had a great practice and great film session, and we were getting up and down the court, and he was a part of all that. You know, that's what hits you a little bit in the stomach when you get that news.
The Sixers, to make matters worse, lost yesterday in their playoff push. They lost on the road to the Houston Rockets, 113-102. They're back in action tonight on the road against the Pacers. We'll see if they can turn around, and you can listen to the game tonight right here on the Fanatic. Pregame coverage begins at 6. The Flyers lost to the Red Wings last night, 6-3. They now sit 1 point above the Islanders for the final spot in the Metro Division. So they're still in the playoffs as of right now. They're back in action tomorrow night in Winnipeg. The Phils, though, they're in action tonight at home against the Diamondbacks. Jesus Luzardo is scheduled to get the start for the Phils, and right-hander Michael Soroka for the Arizona Diamondbacks. First pitch is at 6:40. I'm Sean Rodman on the home of the Sixers, Flyers, and Union, 97.5 The Fanatic and The Fanatic.
Young Connor, Kincade Salciunas, Philly Sports Talk, 97.5 The Fanatic and the Fanatic app.
We're going to bring the Fightin' Phils into the conversation in this segment on this Fix It Friday here on Kincade and Salciunas. I'm Connor Thomas alongside Amy Fadul. We're filling in for John and Andrew today. They'll both be back on Monday from vacation. And we are trying to figure out if Joel Embiid will be back before the Sixers season comes to a close in the postseason, as he had appendicitis pop up yesterday, emergency surgery for the appendectomy, and just another thing in the long list of what in the world is going wrong with this guy. And this one is nothing you can put on him. It's just more of the story of unlucky. We played a clip last segment from Tim McMahon and Kendrick Perkins on NBA Today talking about how he's the unluckiest superstar of a generation. Might go further than that. He might be one of the most unlucky athletes in the history of sport. But that's just what it is at this point.
You and I were just talking about that. You go through other athletes that have had these type of debilitating, borderline catastrophic injuries. You maybe get to two like whole chunks of seasons lost. Joel Embiid has had those in spades. I don't know of another athlete that's had more than two season-ending type of injuries, and poorly timed illnesses and freak accidents over and over and over again. It's the luck of it is truly. If he had any other kind of luck, it would be remarkable, because it seems like it's only been bad luck, which is awful because he's such a tremendous player. The upside is so high. But then you just look at it and be like, why? Why can't we have nice things?
I don't know, Amy. And some folks will look at that as a Joel Embiid conversation. Some people will also make it a bigger conversation about the Sixers in general, because there has been Sixers fatigue that has grown in this town. And Sean in West Philadelphia is on the phone line, wants to talk about the Sixers more as a team. Sean, you're live here on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Hey, good morning. Good morning. What's up, Ames?
Hey.
Good morning, man. So this is my thing. I hope Embiid gets better, man. But I think that we talk so much crap about our team, and some of it is, it goes beyond basketball sometimes. And I think we just build up this cachet of just bad energy toward our squad. I think it breaks the dam at some point, And unfortunately, it just always wind up showing up on Embiid. But you guys are talking about like the juju and, the mojo and all that stuff. So I'm just taking it in that realm. You know what I mean? I know it's not really that, obviously.
No, I know what you're
saying.
saying.
Just thinking about it and hearing your conversation. And, I turn toward my sports stations to, kind of get a pick-me-up when things like this happen. And I really kind of just really stop listening because, it's not the host mostly. Sometimes it is, but a lot of times it's the fans that, we just come down on our team so badly, and just like a lot of it is geared toward Embiid. And, I can't stand that type of conversation.
I feel you,
so
Sean.
I don't listen. I don't listen mostly. You know what I mean?
Yeah, let me ask you this, though, because this is the tough balance for me. I feel you, what you're saying. I think sometimes we are too hard, and it's not just the Sixers. This fan base can be tough on teams. But when you see a team coming up short, an organization coming up short, if you're just positive more than we are you kind of letting the organization off the hook for the failures that they can control?
No, because it's been obvious. It's been obvious things like you guys mentioned. The trade in Mikal Bridges and all those things. It's been things that the organization has done, particularly with the Sixers. I'm talking about because I love my Sixers. I think I love them more than any other sports team here in Philadelphia. But so no, it's not. You can't let the organization off the hook, but that bleeds into the team.
I feel you.
You got to kind of separate it a little bit there. And I think, man, I just wanted to comment on that. Thanks for being there, man. This is devastating again, and I'm just trying to get through it like everybody else.
Hey, man, we all are, Sean, and we appreciate it.
Perfectly said at the end. It's just like you're just trying to be like, you want to be positive. You want to look at it. And I think that we looked at the end of that Rockets game, and you thought, well, yeah, they made it a game in the fourth quarter. Is there something you're going to take away from that? What positive? Because people are looking for something, looking for that silver lining, so to speak. What positive can you take away? Well, the Sixers have, they've won games without him. He's missed 43 games or whatever it is this year, 42 games. They've won 19 of them. So, all right, is that something that you can take away? I don't know, but you are really kind of grasping at straws right now.
Yeah, and I totally understand Sean's perspective. There have been times where I have come in here to do this job, and we get a chance to talk to a lot of fans day in and day out and hear what the narrative is surrounding all these teams. And there are times when I wonder about the sustainability of success in Philadelphia, the way that people handle playing in Philadelphia, our athletes, how quickly we turn over on certain coaches or certain positions. And I wonder if we were a lighter, more forgiving fan base, if that would lead to more success. But I cannot pitch that idea because I know that letting organizations off the hook is something that it's not productive. There are times where it is very clear that things need to change, and it's your right as a fan to be upset about those. So I can't tell the Philadelphia fan base, hey, you guys should be nicer so that maybe people have an easier time playing here. Because part of the strength of this city is we do not let you get away with BS that other organizations in other towns do, where ownership hangs around for decades and doesn't win anything. Coaches stay forever and don't win anything. Players are there forever and they don't win anything. We will not allow that. And there's an upside to that here in Philly. But like our caller Sean was saying there is some times where it's just like it's a tough balance to find.
When you're that much invested as the Philadelphia fans are in their teams, you have to feel everything, good and bad, at high levels. That's what makes this a great sports town. I always talk to people and they're like, oh, you know, what? There's a bunch of great sports towns. No, there's really not. There's maybe like 4 of really great locked-in sports towns. Cincinnati's not a great sports town. Do they have like aspects that are really great? Sure. I'm sure that they have like fun runs every now and again.
Well, yeah, if you go to Skyline.
Chili cheese coney are the only ways to go there. But D.C., not a great sports town. Do they have like moments where it's fun? Sure. Like Philadelphia is a great sports town because it doesn't matter what time of year. It doesn't matter what's going on, what season, what your team is doing. You're going to have some opinion on it, good or bad. You've got some. There is no apathy with this fan base. And that's why I think it's the best sports town. Personally, for me, it's my top 3. It's number 1, Philadelphia, then I'll go down to Chicago and Boston. I don't really accept anything after that. I don't accept New York. I think it's 2 people from everywhere else. I think that maybe you could put them 4. But when people are like, what about L.A.? Hilarious.
Yeah,
Stop it.
No shot.
No. Yeah, just because you have a lot of sports teams doesn't make you a great sports town. So that is the good with the bad. Because you are so invested, you feel everything so much more. And so when you have something like this, you're just like, you got to be kidding me. If this was Cleveland, they would be bummed and then be like, well, all right.
Yeah. Well,
it happens.
We'll go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
And that's a team, obviously, like the Cavaliers, they've gone through stuff. They had their star player leave.
They had LeBron.
And he left, and then he came back, and then he left again. And they're still like, yeah, that was not great. But they have the Browns. They really have some real problems. Yeah. But look at the Indianapolis. They lose their star player in Game 7 of the NBA Finals. Mm-hmm. It was bad. I'm sure it bummed them out. But do you think people's lives were like, I don't think that there's people in Indianapolis that were like, my mood was affected for an entire year. This will affect people. Like you heard Sean, like, he's just like, I'm trying.
People are beat down.
Because we care.
I can't blame them. It's a great part of the fan base, and I never want to take that away. Now, you brought up how any time of the year we'll have something that we're feeling passionate about, even if it's early April for a baseball team that has only played 12 games. So I want to bring the Phillies into this Fix It Friday conversation. We had some conversations this week about the lineup issues, the offensive lack of productivity. We even had a conversation yesterday morning about when is it time to make a change with the manager and the hitting coach. I think that's insane to have that talk now, but John brought it up yesterday, and there are people who did believe that that needs to be part of the conversation. I think that's crazy, but bottom line is this. Things need to be fixed with the Phillies, and there is angst with that team as well. We talked to Scott Lauber of the Inquirer yesterday, and he talked about the impact of a hitting coach, because we were talking about Kevin Long, but also potential lineup changes that you could see as early as tonight when they take on the Arizona Diamondbacks.
I think the hitting coach makes an impact, and I think in a few different ways. I mean, certainly there's the, hey, I noticed this. Let's correct it, like mechanical change. But I also think a hitting coach can be kind of like a an amateur psychologist a little bit now and then, because we all know that the nature of the sport, right? Guys get into ruts and they'll go 0 for whatever, and it's hard to get out of it. And sometimes guys say the harder I work, the worse it gets. And I think the hitting coach is there for all of that, like to kind of talk them through it, to kind of make adjustments, to kind of be a teacher, but also kind of be a little bit of a psychologist and be inside their head. So I think it makes an impact. Now, I think like anything else over time, you have the same boss, you have the same coach, you have the same manager, you have the same whatever over time, and maybe the message gets a little, stale or repetitive or whatever, and sometimes a change is good. And I think a lot of times in baseball, especially when you see a hitting coach or a pitching coach get fired, it's less a reflection on the job they're doing than it is that maybe they've been there a while, or maybe they're a scapegoat in a lot of cases, right? Because changes have to get made, and you can't change the whole team, and maybe you don't want to fire the manager, and so you make a change like that. I don't think they're anywhere near doing that on the hitting side. I know Rob Thompson knows Kevin Long really well. They've worked together for a long time. Rob Thompson often calls Kevin Long the best hitting coach in the business, and I think truly believes that. And I think there are players out there on the Phillies and off the Phillies who believe that he's really good at this.
So he talks a lot about Kevin Long and how a lot of it is on the players and how the hitting coach only does so much and what the role is there. So I don't think there's any changes coming to the coaching staff anytime soon. Now, if we get to June and they stink, that's a totally different conversation. Rob Thompson's seat is not cool. Kevin Long's seat is not cool, but I wouldn't exactly call it hot right now.
No, I just think there's always going to be some kind of concern because you're looking at what's the same, right? The run it back. It's been the theme of the offseason for the Phillies, and that includes the coaching staff running it back. When you have the drought that we saw in the postseason, the last couple of years of the bats, you're always going to have to look at, well, who's in charge of that? Like, who's in charge of how everything's going to run when you're sitting at the dish? Who is talking to these guys about their approach at the plate? That would be the hitting coach. So it's the same as like looking at a quarterback's coach or an offensive coordinator. What's going on with the offense? You look to the first line of defense, which is the players, and then you look to who's the one that's advising them with the approach at the plate. I think that's where it comes in. To say those are lock jobs, that there's no way you let anybody go if the Phillies continue the way they're going, I think is completely disingenuous. I can't imagine that conversation hasn't at least come up in their minds of like, this is not good. Like what? And you're talking to the players. Is there something that you guys are seeing? Is there something that we can do to better support you? Is this a philosophy that it's off? Like, why do you think this is? Because you haven't run into you're not facing Mason Miller every single night.
No.
Right?
No, you're not. Even though the Colorado Rockies bullpen has actually been better than you think.
It's not terrible.
Yeah,
it's not terrible.
But the thing with that conversation is, while I don't believe there's going to be change with the coaching staff now, I think they had those difficult conversations this offseason before they decided to bring all those guys back. And I know that there are plenty of people out there on a Fix It Friday that have fixes for the Phillies. They want to change this. They want to move this player. They want to switch the lineup this way. I think the bigger part of the equation for the Phillies is what can't be fixed. And I think this is the biggest problem with how the fan base looks at this team right now, is not accepting where we are already locked into. I'll tell you what that is coming up next. We'll also check in on the Twitter poll of the day and what the folks are saying on the Davis on the text line, because it is a heavy reaction day to the Joel Embiid appendicitis news. It is Kincade Salciunas here on the Fanatic.
Keep it locked. Kincade Salciunas.
97.5 The Fanatic and the Fanatic app.
We're going to check in on our Twitter poll in just a minute here, asking about Joel Embiid and if you view his time here as more unlucky or under-delivering. And it was close last time we checked, so we will keep an eye on that. But first, I want to continue that conversation we were just having about the Phillies, because there are changes you can make. We're having a Fix It Friday here on Kincade and Salciunas. Andrew and John on vacation, so I'm Connor Thomas and Amy Fadulis to my left. And with the Phillies, there are certain things you could fix. You could make lineup tweaks. You could, if things go poorly throughout the course of the
moving people up and down.
Yeah, right?
I think that's the first fix.
I think tonight Brandon Marsh should be in the 5-hole and Stott should be batting.
Correct.
Center. Like that.
100%. I literally had that exact same conversation, that same talking point the other night. Like, what are we doing?
It just has to happen. Stott's too cold. Marsh is too hot right now. And these are easy things.
Right.
But there are some folks who are like, I need to see big sweeping
wholesale changes.
Here's what can't change. And I'm not a person who fights against something that can't be changed. Maybe that's a weakness of mine. Maybe that means I don't hold the principles that I need to in life. But when I see something that I'm like, I know that nothing I say or do is going to change the outcome of this, what am I fighting the fight for?
Right.
And for the Phillies, I've been at this place for a couple of years. I've accepted that the long-term contracts that they've roped themselves into, mainly being Bryce Harper, Trey Turner, Aaron Nola. Now Kyle Schwarber gets his new deal. There's nothing you had to resign. But once you sign Harper,
put JT in there?
Turner, Nola, that's more recent.
Yeah.
But that first part leads into the JT and the Schwarber thing. You are so locked into the core of those two guys as just position players. You want to win in their window. To win in their window, you want to sign veteran players because you're not rebuilding with those guys at the point they are in their career.
You're enhancing.
Yeah, by the time you rebuild with baseball, with how long it takes guys to come up, Bryce Harper's 38 and Trey Turner's 37, and you're screwed. So they've been so locked in. What you can't change is the core of this team, really. You could move an Alec Bohm. You could move a Brandon Marsh or a Bryson Stott. But you're not moving Harper. You're not moving Turner. You're not moving Schwarber. And with that, you're kind of roped into, for better or worse, the Phillies have – their feet are in cement with the current strategy. And while I know there's people who want to see the core of this team change, and they're over some of the star players on this team because of the postseason shortcomings, it's not realistic to expect that to be any different.
Yeah, it's one of those inevitable outcome type of things when you look at, if you want to get real, like, statistical based, the metrics and the math of it, of like, all right, well, these are the knowns. The unknown is this. Can you predict the outcome? That's really what you're looking at when you think about how you have to mentally wrap your brain around certain things. And so when you look at all that, are you mentally prepared for the outcome that is probable? It's a probable outcome because you've seen it before. You know how things operate. And then when you get to that, this is like so mathy. You can tell I've been doing like algebra homework or helping with algebra. Not doing it because Lord knows I could. That access of my brain is long gone. But like trying to look at it. But then you started looking at the variables, right? What can you do to affect the outcome? And some of the variables are things that you can change. Like, what can you change? Wholesale things cannot be changed. The way that things are structured, the way that the math is, you cannot make wholesale changes. It just does not allow for it in this window that you're talking about, in this like 3-year window, right?
Yeah, it's very Sixers-esque with the Paul George, Joel Embiid contracts. And you can get mad.
You're locked in.
You could say, oh, you shouldn't have given this contract. You shouldn't have made this move.
That ship has sailed.
We're done. So
You're
we are
looking
where you
at
are.
you're looking at the numbers as they have them. You feel like you know what the predictable outcome is. What are the variables that you can change to your equation to try to change your outcome? And I think that's where you're at when you're talking about Fix It Friday, right? You're trying to come up with some variables and things that you could do that would sway one of the outcomes. And sometimes it doesn't have to be swayed a lot, just maybe a little bit here and there. I think one of the variables that you have to change, as we were just talking about for the Phillies, is change in the lineup. I think that's the very first thing you have to adjust. And then you have to look outside and think, is there another overall strategy that needs to be adjusted, whether it's the approach at the plate or whatever.
Yeah, maybe here's the thing, like deadline acquisition. Every team, anyone who's like, oh, I don't like when team needs something at the deadline. Every contending team needs something at the deadline.
You always need something.
Yeah, so that could change depending on how aggressive they are. And I imagine they're going to be pretty aggressive.
One would
with
think.
Maybe no season next year and an aging core. Like, that you can't make the wide sweeping changes with a team that's so locked in contractually. And that's something we're seeing with the Sixers and Phillies. But sometimes you try and do everything right and you just get unlucky. Is that the way you view Joel Embiid? Part of the big conversation we're having today. And we have the Twitter poll. The Twitter poll, I believe, is still up, thanks to Dr. Avidan Appel of Iron Mountain Men's Health. Is that correct, Sean?
Yes, it is. Our Twitter poll today is what word best describes Joel Embiid's career in Philadelphia, and it's moved a little bit. Unlucky, still in first place at 57%, to under-delivering as the other option at 43%.
So more people now saying unlucky. It was 53-47 last time we checked it. If this goes to like more 65% saying unlucky, I might actually argue against the way people are voting, because I do think the under-delivered deserves to be in the 40% range of responders. Yeah. But I think unlucky, and we're on the same page with this one, Amy, is the stronger part of the conversation with Joel Embiid when you look at the whole picture. And it's a shame, but that's what we have to deal with.
Yeah, that's where we're at. And it's just one of those things. It's bad. It's just bad luck. It's an epic amount of it. That's where you're at too. It's like, it's not just one unlucky thing. It's just a multiple, and you're like, why? Just why? That's what I need to have that answered.
Yeah.
Can you answer that for me?
I don't have that answer for you.
I don't know what we're doing here. We better talk about it some more.
Maybe somebody on the text line has that answer. We will check coming up next, but we're going to get a little emotional to start the 9 o'clock hour. I'm going to let you hear from Nick Nurse. We played it earlier, and his response to it. You got to feel for him, but how much do you wake up emotionally feeling for Joel Embiid today? I know he catches a lot of flack from this fan base, but from a human element, how much is this a situation where you feel for the guy? We'll talk about that next year on Kincade Salciunas, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Now on 97.5 The Fanatic Sports Update.
Joel Embiid out for the rest of the regular season. I'm Sean Rodman, and the Sixers announced that Joel Embiid had successful surgery in Houston yesterday for his appendicitis. Tony Jones, The Athletic, joined Unfiltered yesterday and told us how long we should be expected to see him be out for.
Well, he's definitely out for the remainder of the regular season. I don't see any scenario where he plays this weekend. Usually for a surgery like that, you're supposed to not do anything physical for 10 to 14 days. You're looking at a timeline conservatively, maybe 3 weeks.
To make the playoff push worse, the Sixers fell on the road in Houston, 113-102. Maxey, Edgecombe, Grimes all had 20-plus points, but it was not enough for the Sixers as they tried to make a comeback in the fourth quarter. Sixers are back in action tonight against the Pacers on the road. You can listen to the game right here on The Fanatic. Pre-game coverage starts at 6. Flyers lost to the Red Wings last night, 6-3. They now sit 1 point above the Islanders for the final spot in the Metro Division. They're back in action tomorrow night in Winnipeg. Phils are back in action at home tonight against the Diamondbacks. Jesus Luzardo is scheduled to start for the Phils. Right-hander Michael Soroka for the Arizona Diamondbacks. First pitch is at 6:40, and this update is brought to you by Mothers Against Drunk Driving. For victims of drunk and drug driving, your grief is unique, but you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call the 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org. I'm Sean Rodman on The Fanatic, right here on The Fanatic.
We know you want to hear more of what Andrew and John have to say. Don't worry, we will. But first, let's hear what they got into earlier today on Kincade and Salciunas.
What are the valid concerns? This is how you could maybe make your case that somebody would agree with you. I see a lot of...
All right, we are back here. John Kincade, who you just heard on vacation. It's Connor Thomas and Amy Fadul with you on this Fix It Friday here on Kincade and Salciunas. Andrew and John will be back on Monday from their vacations. Joel Embiid will be back at some point, but not some point in the very near future when the Sixers could use him. If you missed the news and you're just waking up today, sorry to ruin your Friday, but Joel Embiid woke up in the middle of the night ahead of their game with the Houston Rockets yesterday. Pain in the side, goes to the hospital. It's appendicitis. He needs emergency surgery. And the general recovery time frame for that is no physical activity for like 10 to 14 days. And then you got to get back into basketball shape. He's going to be out for a period of weeks. And with 3 games remaining in the season for the Sixers, that could be the death knell for their season. And it's not something, in case you're not familiar with how appendicitis works.
Nothing you could do to cause it.
No, it's not dietary.
You don't eat anything. You don't take a hard hit to the appendix, which also, side note, what a nonsense organ.
Stupid.
Doesn't do anything except for like cleanse out some stuff. So when it gets infected through nothing that you can do, you can't let it burst because as you found out, you said your dad had this, and Mark Jackson was telling a story, his brother had this. Very bad.
Yeah.
Because it's just a cleansing agent. All it does is like cycle out toxins and stuff in your body. So if it gets out there, you're in danger of sepsis and serious infection. So you do not want to have it burst. That's obviously a very bad thing. It happens. You have to have immediate surgery to remove it, regardless. But what a nonsense thing.
Yeah, one day...
It's literally called extra. Appendix is just extra.
It does nothing for you, and one day it just decides it wakes up and it wants to kill your star basketball player. Only in Philadelphia. But part of this then brings us back to the whole story of Joel Embiid. And that's where today is an interesting day, because in a normal circumstance, you see Joel Embiid out with an illness and people lose their minds. And rightfully so, with the availability issues that have gone on for his whole career. And people will always question that about Joel. And it was poor timing, not that anything could be controlled, with the situation that happened ahead of the Wizards game where he missed a shoot-around and he was sick there and the communication didn't happen. So people were already on edge with Joel recently.
You're kind of waiting for, like, what now?
And then this happens. Everyone loses their mind before we get the news about the appendicitis, and then everybody's got to backtrack. And I don't blame any party here because I think it was all valid reaction. But where it leaves us is just another chapter in the long saga of what in the world keeps happening to this player and this basketball team. And there's an emotional aspect to it. There has to be. If you are just a person with any bit of empathy out there for your fellow human being, you have to feel for a guy that has gone through this much. And to be even closer to the situation, that is now amplified. So Nick Nurse had a chance to meet with the media. And, of course, this was what he talked about with Joel Embiid and hearing the news. And to think about being in that position as the head coach of a basketball team that's gearing up for the playoffs and you finally have everybody back and something like this happens, you can understand why he was clearly in his feels a little bit. Here's what Nick Nurse had to say.
We had like an unbelievable day as a team yesterday. I mean, we had a great practice and great film session, and we were getting up and down the court, and he was a part of all that. You know, that's what hits you a little bit in the stomach when you get that news.
So my question is, because you can hear it with Nick Nurse talking about it, he's like, I felt like we were in such a good place.
Everybody's practicing. We're up and down the court, super aggressive. Joel Embiid was part of that. And then he hits you a little bit in the stomach. That's well, I can't imagine a bigger,
pun intended.
Yeah, I can't imagine a bigger gut punch than appendicitis to your star center.
And it's not controllable, and there's nothing you can do. And in this instance, right, if you don't have an emotional response, knowing that appendicitis, it's very painful when you wake up with it. It is something that if it bursts, it can be life-threatening. Like, this is something where in the instance you have to feel for Joel Embiid. But I wonder if people wake up today and view him as a sympathetic figure in Philadelphia sports. With everything that you've gone through with this organization and this player And I know I read the text line every day when I'm back there producing. I know the amount of texts we get that are, this dude has not gotten it done. Get him out of town. I'm so tired of it. He's never delivered. The MVP wasn't legitimate. He's not as good as the Joel Embiid defenders think he is. I can't wait for the Joel Embiid time in Philadelphia to be over. That is a strong sentiment from this fan base and has been for years now. But when you look at the whole picture, we talk about him as unlucky, which is the option that's winning our Twitter poll today between unlucky and under-delivering. Is Joel Embiid a character in the Philadelphia sports story that is one of those sympathetic figures?
Yeah, it's interesting because the first answer is yes. Of course, you have to feel sympathy for him. He's a human being. There's things that have happened in his basketball career so far that are being completely out of his control. The Bell's palsy, taking an elbow randomly from your teammate, taking an elbow from an opposing player. These are freak accidents. There's stuff that you could point to and think, well, maybe if he had done this X, Y, and Z, that he would have been in a better position. The appendectomy being the most recent one is just truly remarkable. And if you don't have that level of humanity for a person that's gone, just take out the equation that he's a basketball player for your favorite franchise. He's a human that's dealt with all of this stuff. If you had a friend that was going through this, you would check on them. You would want to come over and support them because you would have thought, wow, you've really been through the ringer.
Forget friend. If you had a coworker, if you had someone that was an acquaintance.
Like, let's get that meal train going because we need to check in on this person. They've got a lot going on their plate.
Yeah.
So, but the sympathetic figure, people have to then, in their minds, when they think about the overall thing with Joel Embiid, there's people that will still come to the conclusion of like, yeah, I feel bad for him, but you hear that out there. You hear it. You see it. You read it. People are like, I do. He's very unlucky. But at the same time, and they'll have whatever it is. And that's an understandable reaction. That's a human reaction as well. As much as you want to have sympathy for somebody, you can still feel frustration. I think you can have two separate thoughts that can run alongside. You can feel frustrated for him. You can feel frustrated for yourself as a fan, given the fact that there's been so much bad luck associated with one high-level, highly productive, when healthy player. This is not just a guy that's a piece of your puzzle. He was the puzzle. Like, he was the leading guy. So I think that's why you have to kind of marry those two.
And let's have a real conversation about this, like a real life conversation about how you handle something like this, because there's another natural human tendency. When you have something, a situation like Joel Embiid's, where it's this constant, man, he's hurt, he's unavailable, he's sick, it's all this stuff happening to him, or he's causing, take that out of it, just the rigors that we've gone through of rooting for a basketball team with Joel Embiid at the center point. Yes, when you see it, you do have that sympathy. Mm-hmm. But there is the tendency for people, not everybody has this, but I know a lot of people do. Have you ever seen those? I think about the Sarah McLachlan commercial, like In the Arms of the Angels, with all the sad cats and dogs that need to be adopted or you need to donate to help them out. There are some people that will see that and will want to change the channel because they're uncomfortable looking at the suffering of other beings. And there is a point where even though you can sympathize with Joel Embiid and feel for him, that you're just like, I don't want to be a part of this anymore. Like, it's not on you, big fella, but I can't deal with the constancy of this.
You have to kind of protect yourself, right? Your mental health, so to speak, your kind of how you feel about your teams. You might have to just take a step away.
And if you're at that point, and to you, the response is, I just can't have this guy on my basketball team anymore. Like, I feel bad for him, but I don't want him to be part of my rooting interest because at this point, I got to change the channel. I just can't look at it anymore. That is where I think people are going to be, some folks today, on the Joel Embiid thing. So there is an emotional aspect of this, how you view him as an athlete because of what he's gone through, and how you balance that with the shortcomings that are under his control. And then what is your response to, are you done with it? It's not.
Are you ready to just move on?
It might not even be mad at him. I know some people are because of the overarching story, but when you look at where we're at now, some people just might not have it in them to fight another Joel Embiid battle. So what do we have on the text line today, Sean? I know a lot of people have been checking in on this news with the appendicitis for Joel.
Yeah, a lot of people checking in, and one person checking in about the curse. I think the key to reversing the curse is getting rid of Joel. It would possibly be best for him. I feel the curse is for the process. Making a joke of basketball for 5 whole seasons, and Joel was the big prize of that. I want him to be gone, and maybe it'll be best for him too.
What do you think about that, Amy, the curse of the process?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of people that are at that point. And it's I think the start of that is like, this is not on Joel. Like, I don't think that people are going to have that personal aspect of it. They're just done with the whole thing. They just don't want to have anything that's going to cause this kind of feeling, right? People are like, I just can't have that guy on my team. The name is almost secondary. You could have this happen, but we're associating with Joel Embiid because he's the one that's been dealing with all this. But if the guy's name was Bob Smith, you'd be like, I just don't want Bob Smith on my team, because if I'm going to have to do something, I got to cut out the problem behind it. And it doesn't mean it's self-inflicted or it's otherwise inflicted. But I think there's going to be a lot more people that are just going to feel like there's only one way to solve it, and we have to, even if he's traded away and he wins a championship with somebody else, that's the price we have to pay. Like, I think there's people that are in that mindset. They're like, I can't deal with this anymore. I can't have a player that's going to be susceptible to this kind of bad luck.
Yeah, and this isn't unfair to Joel Embiid. I want you to think about the history of this town. This is a town that was very comfortable moving on from Andy Reid as the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Because it was like time, right? It's just time.
It just is, right? It wasn't Andy Reid stinks as a head coach. It was, it's better for us to go our separate ways. He went on to win multiple Super Bowls in Kansas City. He's been incredibly successful. And once the Eagles won their first one, we started to get comfortable with that idea.
You realize, like, okay, well, this was just going to be, it was the inevitable. I think you felt like it was an inevitable thing.
Yeah, but that wasn't a guy who, like, I don't know, 5 games out of the NFL season, he wasn't on the sideline.
Forgot to coach.
Yeah, like, he was successful here in this town, and there was a large majority of people that were comfortable with the Eagles moving on because that was just a break point. So if you're waking up and you're like, yeah, it kind of feels unfair to Joe because this specific instance isn't his fault, but I'm done with it. We have done that before with more deserving people to stay here. It's a realistic part of sports is you do come to a break point. And I think a lot of people are there with the Joel Embiid-led Sixers.
Yeah, I don't think, and again, it's one of those things. You're looking at the entirety of his career, how many games. And I go back to, he did play in a majority of the postseason games, 68 postseason games that the Sixers have been in since have been here, right? You go back to 2018 since they made the postseason. He's played in 59 of them. That's 87% almost. That if you tell me like, hey, but he hasn't been healthy for those 87%, right? I remember talking to him on media day, and he's like, I'm excited to be healthy for a postseason. It's the overarching theme every single year. And so when people are talking about I'm done, the overarching theme of the entire season every year is get Joel Embiid healthy to the postseason. Why do you sign Paul George? The number one thing was, Paul George said it, I'm here to make sure the big guy stays healthy for the postseason. Let's get Joel Embiid healthy to the postseason. And on the morning of basically a playoff type of game that you had to win, the freakiest thing of all time, appendicitis and an emergency appendectomy. You can't make it up. So I understand when people are like, I'm out. I don't care if it was just an act of God every single time. There's something going on, and they can't be there anymore. If you got to protect your mental health, I feel you, friends. I feel you, because it does. That's another thing when we're so invested. In Philadelphia, if we didn't care, it would be like, oh, that's just bad luck. We'd move on with our day. That's not how we operate here. It affects us. It affects people. Like, I'm sure you've gotten like the text when the Phillies stop scoring runs. People are like, what's going on? My texts are, what's going on? Why can't they score any runs? I'm sorry. Like, this is a downer. We get down on things, and it's such a bummer. It's such a bummer.
It really is. And that's where I think a lot of people are today. Now, we've gotten some great texts. We've had some callers break down how they're feeling, but we also have some voice memos that I want to get to on this. You can send voice memos to the text line, 610-632-0975. So if you want to hit the Davis Honda text line with a little extra juice and let us actually hear the emotion in your voice. It's a shame because yesterday we were giving away Flyers tickets, and the way we did it was get us fired up for the big game against the Detroit Red Wings on the voice memo line, and everyone was like very excited. I imagine it's a bit of a different tone today. So what do we have on the voice memo line there, Sean?
A bit of a different tune right now, and John C. from Tennessee checks in on his feeling towards Embiid.
When a guy shows up every day, day after day, week after week at work, and then something happens, you really feel bad for him. But the person that calls in sick constantly, taking days off, and then something happens to him, you don't feel as bad, even though you still feel bad. This is John C. in Tennessee.
Listen, it's a natural response there.
I get it.
That's not where I'm at, but I
Agreed.
understand why people are there.
I think that there are, I'm literally getting text message people like, you don't understand. It's 91 games in the last 3 years. Like, you reap what you sow. I don't know that anyone would reap this kind of pain.
Yeah.
Ever. I don't know what you put out in the universe that you would get this in return, but there are people that feel that way.
Like, if he went out and he had not played, and because he had not played and he's been doing the load management stuff, and he had a bad playoff game where the shot was off, and it's just like you didn't do enough to prepare yourself to be in that moment. That would be you should have shown up for maybe a couple more games this year to get yourself ready. But this is not like when you see something like this happen, it's not the first completely unlucky thing to happen to Joel Embiid that is outside the realm of the typical basketball player.
And I think that's why when people are like, we just have to get out of that realm.
Yeah, which I don't blame you. Like, it's not the Philadelphia Joel Embiids. They are the 76ers, and life will exist whenever it is that he's off this basketball team. You're going to continue to be a fan. So if you're at the point where you can't do it anymore, I'm not here to, tie you to this way of life. But he is still incredibly talented, and he is still under contract. So we will see what happens in the future. What else do we have on the voice memos from the Davis Honda text line?
No name on this one, but kind of how the feeling towards how a lot of people are feeling right now.
This is what happens when you cry wolf too many times. People are going to blame Embiid for illnesses that weren't there, whether he stayed up too late, playing video games. But it's unfortunate that he had his appendicitis appendectomy done. Still on Embiid at the end of the day. Can't cry wolf.
Oh, okay. That's a little strong.
Again, that's people are saying you're putting out into the universe things that are going to bad things happen. If you believe in karma, if you truly, and that sounds like that gentleman does believe truly in karma because he thinks that Joel Embiid put enough bad juju out there in the atmosphere that it caused his appendix to be infected at 3:00 in the morning of the biggest game of the season. Like, that's strong. That's tinfoil hat stuff. I'm not saying you're wrong. There's people that believe in karma. We were just talking about that. Like, do I get there? I'm not there yet. But there's definitely moments where you're thinking, like, what have they done to reap this kind of bad juju? Because it's a lot.
The thing there, too, is I've had a thought adjacent to what that voice memo was talking about, the person there. Because that's why I will defend John Marks and Sean Brace. That's why I will defend Ricky Batalico and Bill Colarulo, who were on these airwaves throughout the day yesterday, ripping into Joel Embiid before the appendicitis news came out. Like, if your initial reaction was what we just heard there on the voice memo line of just like another thing, unbelievable.
Of course it happens.
And that is where the boy who cried wolf thing comes in. Because anytime you see illness, you're not going to wait. You're going to have that visceral reaction to this guy again. But then when you get the more information, that to me goes out the window.
Yeah, to say that because he stayed up late, whatever other things that you think that he caused earlier is the reason, quote, it's on him. I mean, come on. I feel then I would watch out for how you live your life because, right, like, what are you putting out there in the universe that's going to come back on you? I don't know. I guess I try to live my life in a way that I want to make sure, I guess, I have good juju, but I don't know that there's anything you could do in the world that would cause a Bell's palsy one year and an appendicitis the next, right before the postseason.
And everything else in between that this guy has gone through in his career. So the Joel Embiid conversation, we will continue throughout the day. Credit to Unfiltered, by the way, who did go hard at Embiid. They switched immediately when they knew the full story. So they took that very well. And John Marks putting out a video on social media yesterday because he didn't get a chance to react on the air.
Right, because it didn't come out till like 3:15, 3:30.
Yeah.
So
I think everybody handled it really, really well. And you just have to understand that you react to the news cycle as it happens. And we got the updates, and it's going to be one hell of a story throughout the day. Something that has become a big story this year for the Flyers. Maybe it existed before that, but more so now that they're in the actual push for the playoffs. They had some major special teams issues against the Red Wings last night in a 6-3 loss. We're going to talk about that a little bit because it's been one of those issues that has existed throughout the year. How much do you start to worry about that with the playoffs right around the corner? And we're going to try and fix the biggest problem in Philadelphia sports. But first, we got to figure out what that is. It's a Fix It Friday. What's the number one issue? We'll debate a couple of them as we continue today's show. It is Kincade Salciunas. I'm Connor Thomas in for Andrew Salciunas. John Kincade is out as well. So Amy Fadul to my left, Sean Rodman on the board, and we're back after this here on The Fanatic.
Now on 97.5 The Fanatic Sports Update.
Unlucky or just bad? Well, it was just not a good night for Philadelphia sports. I'm Sean Rodman, and Joel Embiid is out for the foreseeable future. Sixers announced that Joel Embiid had successful surgery in Houston yesterday for appendicitis. Nick Nurse spoke pregame on the shocking loss of Embiid.
We had like an unbelievable day as a team yesterday. I mean, we had a great practice and great film session, and we were getting up and down the court, and he was a part of all that. You know, that's what hits you a little bit in the stomach when you get that news.
To make matters worse, the Sixers lost last night to the Houston Rockets 113-102. Sixers are back in action tonight against the Pacers on the road, and you can listen to the game right here on The Fanatic. Pre-game coverage begins at 6. Flyers lost to the Red Wings last night 6-3. They now sit 1 point above the Islanders for the final spot in the Metro Division. And the Flyers are back in action tomorrow in Winnipeg. The Phillies are back tonight. They are home against the Diamondbacks. Jesus Luzardo is scheduled to get the start for the Phils, and right-hander Michael Soroka for the Diamondbacks. First pitch is at 6:40. This update is brought to you by Papa John's. It's turning up the heat with your choice of 3 new oven-toasted sandwiches, just $7.99 each or $6.99 with Papa pairings. Order today at papajohns.com, on the app, or stop by your local Papa John's. I'm Sean Rodman on the home of the Sixers, Flyers, and Union, 97.5 The Fanatic and The Fanatic.
The Fanatic.
The final hour of Kincade Salciunas is presented to you by The Bagster. It's a dumpster in a bag. You can get yours today at Home Depot and Lowe's. You need details? Go to Bagster.com.
All righty. Well, there was, believe it or not, other stuff that happened in the Philadelphia sports universe besides the Joel Embiid emergency appendectomy yesterday. Now, of course, that's the biggest story. We will continue to react to that. Middays with Marks is going to be into it. Unfiltered is going to be into it. You're going to get plenty of breakdown on how everybody is feeling about that and the long-reaching implications. So we're not going away from that, but the Flyers are still in the midst of a postseason push. Unfortunately, last night, they did not look like a postseason team in Detroit against the Red Wings, losing 6-3. The game was not as close as the score would indicate.
No.
And special teams were the main issue for the Flyers in that game. They took some dumb penalties, which you're going to have games where you make mistakes, but down the stretch like this, you need to stay out of trouble in spots where it is avoidable. It's not like there were breakaway opportunities for the Red Wings where you just have to hook a guy to make sure that he does not get a one-on-one look at a goalie. Like, they were taking bad penalties in bad parts of the ice, and then immediately
allowing shorthanded.
Yeah.
It's just the whole thing was a mess.
Now, this has been, and I'm interested for Flyers fans and people who are maybe just buying in on this run or have been bought in for a while. The power play has been an issue for the Flyers all year. They're near the bottom of the NHL in it.
This year, last year.
In perpetuity.
Rinse and repeat, unfortunately.
And the penalty kill has been better than the power play, but they're not exceptional on either side of the special teams equation there. And I wonder how people handle that for a team in the midst of a rebuild where the expectations are basically at this point non-existent. Not that you're not looking for them to make the playoffs, but you weren't coming into this season expecting it to be this playoff run year. We're playing with house money with the Flyers. If they don't make it in, I'll be upset because I got myself excited for it.
The last month, you've been sitting there, and I think before that, if you looked in February or early March, you thought, all right, well, if they make it, great. If they don't, I saw enough that I feel like in a good spot. But then the last month, you're like, oh, we're right there. We're in. Yeah. Right now, the Flyers are in. So if for it to go a little bit sideways and then to now fall off this close to the finish line, I think it would be that's the disappointing part, because it's not like this was a month ago or even 3 weeks ago. This is right here at the doorstep. You only have a handful of 3 games to go, 2 of which are finishing at home with teams that shouldn't have anything to play for. If you take care of your own lawn, as they like to say, you should be in good shape.
Yeah, but at this point in the season, I totally agree with you there. Have you ever been to the rodeo?
No.
Okay.
I've never been to a rodeo,
which
is like strange.
I went to the Cowtown one, but that's like the South Jersey rodeo. So
it's probably not the same thing.
Yeah, they got a little bit of stuff.
Rodeo. I've never been to a rodeo.
But if you've ever seen on TV, or everyone knows generally, maybe it's your first rodeo. I've heard about those. They can be rough. But when you see somebody come out of the cage riding the bull, right? You don't really think about what are my mechanics here of how I'm doing this. What are the fundamentals? You know what you do? You grab onto whatever you can. You hold on as long as possible before you get thrown off this damn thing.
I feel like that's how you describe a mechanical bull ride down at PBR and Stateside Live.
Maybe that's a better example.
I feel like that's maybe a little bit more what I'm seeing. I think there is probably some mechanics behind the professional bull riders, but at the PBR mechanical bull at nighttime, I feel like I'm watching something of like, good luck. Jesus, take the wheel, everyone, because that guy has no idea, or girl has no idea where that thing's going to go.
Let's go with that example then. That may be a more apt one for this area. But my point is, why I bring that up, and it seems like a total left turn here, where we're at this point in the season, when you have a team that you didn't expect to make the playoffs and are not this team that you're looking at like, oh, Stanley Cup or bust, I don't look at the special teams issues or the power play issue, and I'm like, this is something they got to get fixed. What can they do? We are in the hold on for dear life portion of this Flyers run. So to me, I want them to win the game. I get upset when they don't. And we will say, hey, you got to be better on that. But I'm not in the fix-it mode for that specifically. I'm in the hold on tight to playoff position and find a way. I don't care if it looks ugly. I don't care if you score 0 power play goals the rest of the way and give up a goal every single time on the penalty kill.
As long as you have more than they do.
If you score more, 5-on-5, cool, let's roll. So is that fair? Am I letting them off the hook? Do Flyers fans feel that way? Or is that maybe more the late arriving fan approach? I'm interested in what people think about that. So if you want to chime in, you can join in at 610-632-0975. But Amy, are you there with the Flyers where it's just kind of hold on tight?
I get it. I think it's hold on tight and enjoy the ride. I think there is a positive element of that, of like, this is bonus. The beginning of the season, they showed flashes and you thought, maybe you got something here. And then the middle of the season, right before the Olympic break, you thought, well, that was fun while it lasted. And you didn't have a lot of confidence. Let's be honest. You didn't have a lot of confidence. And even right out of the Olympic break, you still weren't riding high. And then they started to piece things together. 3 wins in a row, and then they would drop the 4th. But then they would get right back on there. The amount of overtime games, truly almost a record at this point. But I think you started to feel it. So it's still hold on tight, but it's enjoy the ride. Let's get there and enjoy that. I think everything is gravy. As far as like the fix it aspect of it, I feel like that's a team that you're looking at of like, wow, they need wholesale changes. I need to do this, this, and this. This is really more about seeing what you've got, get to the postseason, get the experience of being in there for the young team that doesn't have a lot of that experience, right? The Flyers have it. It's not like they're coming off a bunch of playoff runs that we have enjoyed the last couple of seasons. Get that experience under the belt for a lot of the players in this regime, in this exact mode, and then you can take from that to build upon. I think that's where I'm at in that regard.
Okay, I think that's a fair place to be. And I'm intrigued as to where the average Flyers fan is at. I know we have a text here on the Flyers, Sean, so let's check the Davis Honda text line. You can check out the Davis difference. We always appreciate them helping us out with this. What do we have?
All right, on the text line, we have someone checking in saying the Flyers are last in the NHL in power play, 20th in the penalty kill. That's going to be their demise. That's going to have to be better for next year. That has to change drastically.
Yeah, but see, they're already looking ahead.
Yeah.
Which means they're going to, I would hope that means you're enjoying whatever this is, because it seems like it's bonus. Because I feel like a lot of Flyers fans are like, listen, this has been fun. We appreciate the ride. We know you're not winning the Stanley Cup this year. I think a lot of people have come to that realization looking around the rest of the NHL and think, well, the Flyers. But if you get there, that's kind of extra. And now you know what you can build upon for next year.
Yeah, the idea of this will be their demise. I think the realistic...
You got to get there to have a demise.
That too, but I think the realistic Flyers fan has already accepted the demise. Now, and I don't
as far
mean
as
that,
this season goes?
Yeah, I don't mean that in a negative way. We know they're not going to be, for all intents and purposes, a Stanley Cup winning team. Now, I don't want to shorthand them, but I think that's realistic to say, all due respect to this run that they're on.
Vegas would agree with you.
So there is a demise. For every team that you look at and say they're not a cup-viable team, you've kind of already accepted why they're not going to lose. I'm not going to let that affect my ability to watch and enjoy this team. But that's me, and I try and watch sports with a little bit more of a less emotional response. It doesn't always work that way, but that's my goal going in. So if you're like that as a Flyers fan, let us know. If you hate that way of thinking and you need this fixed, let us know, because it is a Fix It Friday here on Kincade and Salciunas, and we've been trying to fix a bunch of different problems in Philadelphia sports. But, Amy, I want to know, what do you believe? If you only had the chance to fix one, it could be any team, it could be any player, it could be anything. The number one fix needed in Philadelphia sports right now is what?
I get one fix?
You get one.
My one magic wand. How big of wand do I get to wave over?
You can't just say a whole team, but it can be like a portion of a team. So for me, let me give you mine. My number one thing that needs to be fixed right now in Philadelphia sports, and it may already be, we haven't seen it yet, but if I could guarantee, it would be the Eagles' offense. Because if that offense is what they were in 24-25, they are a Super Bowl winning team again.
Yeah, I mean, I guess when I thought about the Eagles, I would think about a better overall relationship between the most important pieces of your offense. That would be my Eagles one. But if I had to think about one thing that I would fix, it would be that the Sixers would be able to pick up the pieces necessary going forward to build around who I think are your star players at this point, and that would be Tyrese Maxey and VJ Edgecombe, the guards, build around really dynamic guard play. And I think there's a lot of people out there that are going to be like, well, you can't build it and win around Tyrese Maxey. I think you can. I think you can build around some really long, rangy wings and win that way. You look at the rest of the league, dynamic guards are what leads the play. You have to have a great center. You got to have some good wings out there. Those are the teams that are the top teams. You're looking at Cade Cunningham and Jalen Brunson and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. These are all guys that are in the conversations of best guards out there. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander obviously being the MVP. So I would wave the magic wand around the entire outlook for how the team would be constructed. Is that too broad of a magic wand?
That's not. I like where your head's at with that one, but it also opens up the door for being okay with the guys they'd have to move off of to make that happen.
This is in theory. I don't actually have the magic wand.
I know you don't have the magic wand.
But no, you're going to have to. There's the numeric value of what you're looking at with the contracts, the way that they're stacked up for the Sixers. You can have the same conversation with other teams, certainly the Phillies in that conversation. We just talked about this with the math. The variables are set, right? Or the statics are set. The variables are the unknown. But right now, you know what's set with your numbers, and you have a predictable outcome, and you have to change the variables, and those could be just the way the contracts are. You got to get more out of. $50 million. There's no other way to say it. You have to get more out of $50 million.
And it might not be enough. Like to the Phillies example, right? We know who's tied in, and we know that ultimately they're probably not going to go anywhere if Bryce Harper, Kyle Schwarber, Trey Turner don't hit in the postseason. You could change other pieces, but if I'm trying to go out on a date with a girl and she's not interested, and I'm like, okay, I got to change something up to win this girl's interest and get the opportunity, and I take my favorite pair of shoes and I change the color of the shoelaces. That's not going to get it done. Like the Phillies may not have enough room. You could change some stuff, but if they're smaller pieces,
right?
Change for change's sake doesn't always have the result necessary. That doesn't overcome the Dodgers.
Right. The impact of the variable is obviously has to be exactly moving up and down different pieces in the lineup doesn't have enough of a change in your possible outcome or your probable outcome, because I think that's the one thing we talked about earlier in the last hour was there's definitives when it comes to this, or certainly probability. More often than not, we know what's going to happen because we've seen it. We know what these guys are, and you can insert whatever players and whatever team we're talking about. So you call it a probable outcome, and there's certain variables that you can adjust to your knowns to try to change that outcome. But at the end of the day, there's a reason it's called a probable outcome. It's a likely outcome.
Yeah, but it's not guaranteed.
It's not guaranteed.
Have you ever noticed shoelaces on anybody?
No.
That thing? That was the
if I did, something's gone really wrong.
That was the most low-level thing that I could think of.
I thought you were going to talk about change your hairstyle, and you're like, no, laces. I'm like, I can honestly say I don't think I've ever noticed anybody's shoelaces.
I got a stupid brain. It was the first thing I could think of.
About hairstyle, or maybe you shave, or you don't, you know what I mean? Something that's actually like you would change.
Those would probably work better.
Yeah, well, one would think as far as like attracting another person, but you went with shoelaces, and I think that says there's a lot about maybe what's going on with you.
All
that's
right,
okay.
all right. We didn't have to go there. My goodness. Thank God Middays with Marks comes up at 10. We got a lot of stuff to get into, though, as we get ready to wrap up Kincade Salciunas for the week. We're going to take a look ahead at what to watch for the Flyers, Sixers, and Phillies this weekend. We're also going to do a little check-in on the Masters, which Sean mentioned in today's headlines, but we haven't really gotten into what the latest was. Just a little checkup because I know a lot of people are interested. It is Kincade Salciunas here on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Back to Kincade and Salciunas, 97.5 The Fanatic and the Fanatic app.
As you just heard, your next chance to win $1,000 company-wide contest comes your way at 10 when Middays with Marks takes over. Not the only thing stood up by Dr. Avi Donapel and Iron Mountain Men's Health. Our Twitter poll is also strong. All 4 hours in the morning and 4 hours in the afternoon with Unfiltered. And we had an interesting one today with Joel Embiid and how you view his time here in Philadelphia. So let's get our final Twitter poll numbers, and then we'll take a look ahead at the weekend with still some big games to come for both the Sixers and Flyers and the Phils back home. So what are our final Twitter poll numbers there, Sean?
Our final Twitter poll numbers to the question, what word best describes Joel Embiid's career in Philadelphia? Unlucky wins today, but at 55%, to under-delivering at 45%.
I think that's the perfect ratio.
I feel like that's pretty accurate. There's going to be enough people that are just fed up, and I feel like if you're just fed up, you're going to lean on the side of maybe not unlucky, just underperformed because you're just done. But the reasons one of the reasons you're done is the fact that he is unlucky, and I think you have to marry the two together. But if you're of the mindset of like I can't anymore. I'm not saying it's completely his fault, but I'm just out. I think there's a lot of people that feel that. I think then they would be in that second kind of like conversation.
Yeah, and I understand both sides of that argument, and I think the balance is great there with how it's struck. It shouldn't be heavy one side or the other. It is a complicated story, and one that hopefully we have not seen the final chapter of. But only time will tell with that as we get deeper into what the Sixers can still do. Speaking of what the Sixers can still do, they are back in action tonight. Do you have any idea, Amy, who's on like pre and post game for the Sixers?
Pre and post game tonight. You can tune in. It will be me. I'll be hosting there. It's 7 o'clock is our coverage on NBC Sports Philadelphia. We'll be joined by one coach, Jim Lynam, who is back. Mark Jackson is not, unfortunately, is not there tonight. No anything wrong with him, but he and his team from Roman Catholic are being inducted into the Hall of Fame. To which my response was like, it's 2026, bud. Like, you guys are just now getting in? What was Roman doing for the past 30 years?
Takes what? Logistics,
what's been
paperwork.
going on with you?
A lot of stuff to fill out.
So I give him a hard time about that. So he was just honored at the Mark Ward Awards. His son won a Mark Ward Award for Catholic Player of the Year, and so now he is being honored with his Roman Catholic team going into the Hall of Fame. So he will not be there. We'll have Ice Young filling in for Mark Jackson. So you can see all of us at 7 o'clock. Pacers game. I'm not even going to entertain it.
We'll see.
No, the Pacers, yes, just beat the Nets, but
they should win this game tonight, with or without Joel Embiid, and they'll have to do it without. You can also hear that game here on the Fanatic, 7:30 tip-off tonight, and then they have the Bucks on Sunday, which rounds out their regular season. Both of these
will be honoring Matt Cord on the broadcast of
awesome.
that the last game. So make sure you tune in. That's a 6 o'clock game. They like to make those games a little bit earlier because there's playoff implications. So it will be a kind of a time for everybody to give a little love to Matt Cord, a man who has earned more than his share of it over the years as the voice of the Sixers for an entire generation. So I'm excited to do that. We'll be talking to him on the broadcast. Obviously should be a Sixers win in that regard too, but watch out for that one.
Undoubtedly, he deserves all that respect.
One of the best people out there.
Yeah, and one of our associates here
That's right.
in the building as well.
Down the hall.
So Sixers, they've got to win every game that they can. You expect them to win out, but even if they do, might not be enough to get them out of the play. They need help. They need to win. They need a lot of stuff. They're probably going to be in the play-in tournament, but we'll watch that. The Flyers, what they have coming up, they have the Winnipeg Jets, their final road game of the year.
Right,
Crazy
Saturday.
that they got to go to Winnipeg for their final road game.
Right up the road.
Yeah, nice easy hop, skip, and a jump there. That's a 7 p.m. puck drop on Saturday, and then they're not back in action until Monday when they've got the Hurricanes and then the Canadiens next Tuesday. So back-to-back.
Those are both home, yes.
Monday and Tuesday at home. So you'll get a chance to see if they can get one in Winnipeg, and the Flyers as well need every game they can get. They win out, they're in. If
Take care of your own lawn.
If they lose one, or God forbid more than one, they're going to need some help. So Flyers with some big stuff. And the Phils have the Diamondbacks in town back here in Philadelphia. The odds are, I'm looking at it right now, for them to score a run in any of these games, plus 750. No, they're going to score a run.
It's like,
you got to imagine.
You see my side eye? Give you like,
I did.
What app is that?
They better score a damn run. That's all we're looking for. Tonight, you've got the 6:40 first
We're at
pitch.
a low bar, aren't we?
Yeah.
This early in the season.
Luzardo on the mound for this game.
I like that.
Then you go ahead and you get Taijuan Walker and Andrew Painter to round things out. Which do you like that as much?
Not as much as I like Jesus Luzardo.
Maybe the offense makes it not matter.
Wouldn't that be a fun little twist? You score 10 runs, it doesn't matter who's out there. You chase. At this point, with the way that this bullpen is stacked up, just get through 5. I'm not asking for like complete games. I'm asking for 7 innings. 5 or 6 innings, you should be able to hold ground as a starter, even if you're the back end of the starters.
Yeah.
In this case, Taijuan Walker.
Yeah, and I think Painter will be better at home. I think that's a more comfortable environment for a young pitcher. So hopefully a bounce back from him and what we saw in San Francisco. But the Phils have a chance to win a series. The offense is really going to be the big thing to watch in that one. And if you need something just to break up your weekend, because God knows we don't have enough sports stories going on right now.
We need more.
We also have the Masters going on, if you're a golf fan. And Amy, I know you were zoned in yesterday. Rory McIlroy off to a hot start. Could we see a repeat?
It's funny, and he had some comments afterward, and it made perfect sense. He was like, his comment was basically, it's a lot easier to win the Masters once you've won one. Here's a guy that so much pressure was on him to win the Masters, and he had really choked it up there in the past. Just some epic chokes and collapses, and just crazy shots. So I think that you see him playing a lot freer. I would think he's going to be the odds-on favorites to try to repeat.
Yeah, you'd have to imagine so. And
he's played well, obviously. And day to day, the conditions will change, and it'll be interesting to see. But it looks like it should be a pretty good week. And the course is obviously playing very tough. You're seeing a lot of really big numbers out there from some guys that you expected to do well, guys that are posting double bogeys and 9s even.
Wouldn't be us if we were down there.
Robert McIntyre flipping off the 15th green after he posted a 9. I think someone posted, like, if you can't flip off a green after you get a 9, what can you flip off?
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody who's ever played the game of golf that hasn't felt the need to do that at some point. But we'll have an eye on a lot of stuff in sports over the weekend. It's going to be a busy one. I know today was a lot about the Joel Embiid conversation. It will continue to be as Middays with Marks comes your way next and Unfiltered at 2 p.m. The important thing to remember in all this, while that is a big story, it is not, hey, the Sixers are done playing basketball. And the Flyers losing last night is not, hey, the Flyers are done playing hockey. Mm-hmm. There's still more to come for those teams. And this is the lot we drew in life as Philadelphia sports fans. You got to body up and get ready to roll. So we've got work still to do to find the postseason. Remember, you also have your chance to win $1,000 cash coming up right at 10 o'clock. So we don't want to stay in the way of that. Amy, thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me. It was a good morning. I enjoyed being here all morning with you.
It's always a great time, and it'll be great
to go into the weekend.
Yeah, of course. And John and Andrew will be back from vacation on Monday, so we're back to our normal spots. Middays with Marks, next with John Marks, Sean Brace, and Ray Dunn, right here on 97.5 The Fanatic.